Good morning, everybody. Happy New Year. And we're going to start today with we actually have two meetings. We have we're going to start with the authority meeting, which is, as a reminder, the district needs to have an authority to issue debt, basically, or create debt. And we are required to have a meeting at least twice a year. And we will start with that and then move on to the regular meeting right after that. So I'm calling to order the regular meeting of the Monterey Regional Waste Management Authority Board of Directors, January 20th, 2023. Roll call, please.
Chair Campbell,
Here.
Vice Chair Shirley. Oh, actually, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Vice Chair Blackwelder.
Here.
Director Alaska.
Here.
Director Delgado.
Here.
Director Shirley.
Here.
Director Askew.
Here.
Director Peak.
Here.
Director Barber. Director Ferlito. Here. We have a quorum.
Thank you, Ida. And I would like to welcome the new board members. And unfortunately, it looks like Kim Barber was not able to make it just yet. Hopefully he's here shortly. And from the city of Monterey, but also Karen Ferlito, welcome. Very, very welcome to this board. We look forward to having you here.
Well, I'm excited to be here too, because I'm sort of a nerd about diversion.
Wonderful. You'll have a lot of kindred spirits here, believe me. So and that's good news. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. And after the Pledge of Allegiance, we will have a moment of silence, please, in honor of James Martinez, who's an employee for Salinas Recycles, Salinas Valley Recycle, and unfortunately lost his life and doing his duties. We'll hear more from Felipe later. So please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please join me for a moment in silence. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Chair. Please fill us in a little more, Felipe.
Sure. So that's Thursday. While facing the severe weather and the increments of what was going on, Salinas Valley Recycles lost a worker, a family member of their organization while working the face of the landfill. And so we don't have full reports on it. We're just aware of what occurred. And we thought it would be the right thing to do to take the moment of silence for Jay Martinez, who's 39 years old, way too early. And we'll continue to keep ourselves abreast of the outcome and findings from that tragic incident. Thank you. Thank you, board.
Thank you. I'm sure heartbreaking for everyone involved. All right, so we need to move on to the election of officers, which is traditionally this authority mirrors the regular board. So if we could have a motion to elect the chair and vice chair. I recommend it's me as chair and as vice chair.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any public comment on that motion? Approach the podium if you're in the chambers, or
Actually, no one on.
no one online. All right, we're closing public comment on that motion. Roll call vote, please.
Director Askew. Aye. Director Delgado.
Yes.
Director Polito,
Yes.
Director Alaska,
Yes.
Director Peak.
Aye.
Director Shirley,
Yes.
Director Blackwelder,
Yes.
Chair Campbell.
Yes,
Motion passes.
unanimously, I believe.
Yes, with those present.
Okay, with the exception of one absent, yes, thank you. All right, public communications, if there's anyone wishing to address the board on matters not appearing on the agenda, may do so now. Please limit comments to a maximum of 3 minutes. The public may comment on any other matter listed on the agenda at the time of the matter being considered by the board. For information about submitting public comments in writing in advance of the meeting, please see the meeting information section of this agenda. Is there anyone who would like to address the authority from the public? Okay, thank you. We're closing public communications. The next matter is the only matter is approve minutes of July 21, 22 of the regular authority board meeting. Any questions or comments from the board? Anyone from the public wish to comment on the minutes of July 21st, 2022? Approach the podium or make yourself known online. Thank you, Ida. Seeing no one in the board, closing public comments. May I have a motion, please?
Move to approve the minutes for July 21st, 2022 for the regular authority board meeting.
Thank you. Thank you, Wendy. All right. Motion is second, roll call vote, please.
Director Askew,
Aye.
Director, Director Blackwelder,
Yes.
Director Delgado,
Yes.
Director Polito,
Abstain since I was not here.
Director Alaska,
Yes.
Director Peak,
Aye.
Vice Chair Shirley.
Yes.
Chair Campbell.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great. That would be seven yes and one abstention and one absent. No, he's here now. Here now. Oh, Bruce. Yeah, no, it's okay. No worries. All right, is there any general manager communications? Yes.
I'll save them for the end, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. And any board members wish to make any statements now regarding the authority? Seeing none, and there's no closed session, I will adjourn this meeting. The next meeting date is July 21st, 2023. Thank you, everybody. Moving on to the regular meeting of the Board of Directors. I'm calling to order the regular meeting of the Board of Directors, January 20, 2022. Roll call vote, please.
This is, okay.
The regular meeting.
Yeah. Chair Campbell,
Yes.
Vice Chair Shirley,
Yes, sure.
Director Alaska,
Here.
Director Delgado,
Here.
Director Blackwelder,
Here.
Director Askew,
Here.
Director Peak,
Here.
Director Barber, Director Polito. Here. We have a quorum.
Thank you, Ida. We already did the Pledge of Allegiance, so we'll move on to public communications. Is there anyone from the public wishing to address the board on matters not appearing on the agenda? May do so now. Please limit comments to a maximum of 3 minutes. The public may comment on any other matter listed on the agenda at the time the matter is being considered by the board. For information about submitting public comments in writing in advance of the meeting, please see the meeting information section of this agenda. So if anyone would like to address the board, please approach the podium or raise your hand online. All right, seeing no one or closing public comments, we're moving on to the consent. These matters include routine financial and administrative actions, which are usually approved by a single majority vote. Individual items may be removed from the consent for discussion and action. Is there anyone on the board that would like to pull any item from the consent? Okay. Okay, see no one. Is there any member of the public that would like to pull any item from the consent or make public comment on the consent agenda in general? Please approach the podium if you're in the chambers, or raise your hand if you're online. Okay. Thank you. Seeing no one, closing public comments on the consent, we can have a motion, please.
I'll second.
Thank you, Leo. Thank you, Wendy. We have a motion in a second. Roll call vote, please.
Director Askew,
Aye.
Director Blackwelder,
Yes.
Director Delgado,
Yes.
Director Polito,
Yes.
Director Alaska,
Yes.
Director Pete.
Aye.
Vice Chair Shirley.
Yes.
Chair Campbell,
Yes.
motion passes.
Thank you very much, Ida. We're moving on to recognition and presentations. That's item 9 is the presentation of resolution 2023 of appreciation for Director Carrie Tice. She's online. Oh, wonderful. Carrie. Good to see you. Sorry you're not here. I would like to read the wonderful resolution that was written for you. Do you have it? Great. Oh, here it is. Thank you. Listen. Much better, much nicer here. I don't know if you can see this, but
Thank you.
get to put this on your wall sometime soon. Okay, resolution of appreciation. A resolution of ReGen Monterey Board of Directors commending Carrie Tice, whereas she has represented the city of Carmel by the Sea from January 7th, 2015 to December 31, 2022, and whereas she served as the chair and vice chair of the district, as well as the chair of the Personnel Committee, and whereas while serving on the Personnel Committee, she navigated the district through difficult decisions of, quote, essential service only, unquote, and employee safety associated with the COVID-19 pandemic. And whereas Director Tice brought a sense of studied, balanced considerations on the board and was excellent spokesperson for the public value of the district's recycling and solid waste management services at her staff, the board, and the public to understand. And whereas Director Tice served on the ad hoc rebranding committee that recommended the district's updated brand promise, quote, reducing waste towards zero, unquote, doing business as name ReGen Monterey, logo and tagline, let's not waste this, which was all approved by the board of directors and implemented in July 2022. And whereas she has been an engaged board member and strong advocate of the district and collection services at City of Carmel by the Sea council meetings, and whereas she always was supportive of district staff and other board members' efforts and accomplishments, and whereas she will be missed for her support of past and continued fiscally responsible board decisions that increase non-disposal services revenue growth and the breadth of the customer base to deliver cost competitive services and lessen the member agency's financial share of the district's operational services. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Directors of the Monterey Regional Waste Management District hereby commends and expresses its appreciation and best wishes to Carrie Tice, passed and adopted this 20th day of January 2023 by the Board of Directors. Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you very much. It's great to see everybody. As you all know, I very much enjoyed working with the board. It's a great board. We work together. Felipe, you are at the helm and you're doing a great job. And of course, the staff. So it's wonderful working with all you, extremely well-run organization. And what I loved about it as well is you learn something new every time you come to that board meeting. You're in great hands with Karen Folito representing Carmel, and I'll miss you all and keep doing what you do best. Thank you very much.
Anyone else like to?
Yes,
Karen, please.
I would like to thank Carrie very much for her service, both on our Carmel City Council Board and on this board. And She has offered to help me along the way, and I very, very much appreciate that. Carrie has always been one of the most prepared council members that I can remember, and I'm sure she was the same on this board. So her shoes are big to fill, but I will attempt to do my best and call on her for counsel as needed. Thank you, Carrie.
Wonderful. Bruce? You're muted.
Carrie, you've just been great, and I learned a lot about how to conduct oneself at a board meeting by watching you. And I think you're a fantastic example of a board member putting the organization first, especially when we have different cities we come from, different jurisdictions, and there might be a tendency to do otherwise. But it was great to watch you put the board first, and you always stayed on point. That was a good example for me to see. And like Karen just said, your sincerity is a wonderful example for the rest of us. Thank you so much, Carrie.
Thank you, Bruce.
Anyone else on the board? Jim?
Yeah, I just want to thank you, Carrie. You were such a great partner in the ad hoc committee. I know you wanted to get rid of the seagull, and so we did it. I'm happy with what we came up with. And yeah, you know, your dedication to this organization was very clear. And you care deeply about the science as well behind it, which is, you know, fascinating to all of us, but I know you were right there with us. So yeah, you were just an excellent contribution. So I enjoyed being your partner on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Carrie, I have to say, I'm gonna miss you terribly and follow along the Bruce's line. The way you conduct yourself during meetings is very, very impressive. Not only were you prepared, but your sense of recall, I mean, your actual recall is amazing. I can't tell you how many times I feel that you've saved a lot of time by just reviewing what has already been discussed and already been decided by the various boards, so we don't rehash it all over again. And I really respect your awareness of why we make decisions and stick to them. So thank you so much, and you really are going to be missed.
Thank you. Those memory pills must be working. Thank you very much. Have a
All right, moving on to presentation resolution for Dan, maybe. Let's see. Actually, Dan, can we just meet in front here, please? Sure.
I only came for the donuts.
Yes. So, yeah, we're gonna miss you here. I don't know if the camera will. Well, the camera might follow us this way. Okay, great. This is again a resolution of appreciation, a resolution of ReGen Monterey Board of Directors commending Dan Albert. Whereas he has represented the city of Monterey from January 18th, 2019 to December 31st, 2022. And whereas he served on the board of directors as well as the finance and personnel committees. Whereas during his tenure at the district, he displayed a good knowledge of the district operations and providing effective public services. And whereas while serving on the Personnel and Finance Committee, he provided meaningful feedback during the annual budget process and displayed thorough understanding of the financial challenges facing the district. And whereas Director Albert brought a sense of reliable professionalism on the board and was an excellent supporter of sustainable waste management services for staff, the board, and the public to understand the significant value of the district services to address the public's solid waste and recycling needs. And whereas he has been a strong proponent of recycling and effective fiscally responsible services, evolving closer to a circular economy. And whereas he was supportive of the staff and other board members' efforts and accomplishments. And whereas he will be missed for his respectful, reasoned, and considered counsel to the board and district staff. And now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Directors of the Monterey Regional Waste Management District hereby commends and expresses its appreciation and best wishes to Dan Albert, passed and adopted this 20th day of January 2023 by the Board of Directors. Thank you, Jay. Thank you.
To say a few words?
Yes, please, please.
So, in closing with my, my public service over 38 years, I've seen a lot of boards, and I've seen especially a lot of school boards being involved in the school district. And I have to say, this is probably one of the most efficient and effective boards that I've seen in my career. And I think it has a lot to do with the staff running a competent facility and organization. So congratulations to you and Tim, your our past manager. But also the board seems to get along so well, and that's something that we all want to see on board. So again, thanks again for the recognition, and have fun.
Board member comments? Wendy.
And Dan, joining this board for me was a big deal, to be able to sit with you. You've been a mentor to me for 15 or more years. I mean, before I had my son, I was, looking to you for guidance with how to get involved in the school district, and the joint use committee with Marina going back, I don't even know how long. And then as I thought about entering public service, consulted with you. You've always been available. You demonstrate and you've taught me so much about what it means to be a leader, and what it means to be prepared as a leader, and what it means to make difficult decisions as a leader, and what it means to really truly care about and serve your community. And I'm forever grateful to you for what you've shared with me in that space. And then from that time forward, we've sat and our paths, I think, have touched in so many different ways, but this was the first time that we got to sit together around a table. And it was meaningful to me, and I continued to learn so much from you about how to compromise, about how to find common ground, and those lessons that you brought to me. I'm personally saying thank you. You will be missed. I will miss working with you here, and I will miss working with you as a community leader as well, and the role that you, and many roles that you've had. And I don't doubt that you'll find you'll be recruited for something else soon. But I will miss you, and I'm forever grateful to you for everything that you've given me and our community. Thank you.
All right, well, yes, thank you, Dan. I have to say that from the moment you got on this board, even though you were new to this board, it was clear your experience was it was amazing, because you understood
thank you so
topics so easily, so quickly, had great input right away.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much for serving on both committees, the personnel and finance, where both committees are going to miss you as well. And I hope we see much more of you in the future.
Thank you.
Yes, Bruce, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Dan, you're so kind and so pleasant. It's a great experience to share the same space with you. And as our chair just said, the skills that you brought from school district finances and administration, you put them to work immediately. So we all listened to everything you said, because it was so well reasoned, and coming from the experience, we didn't need to know what you did before you got here. It was just obvious that you were a great asset to this organization. We were really lucky to have you, and you were unflappable in your retirement habit of never wearing a tie.
All right.
Sure, I'd like to send my appreciation to Dan and Carrie. my first year here at ReGen, I had a lot to learn. I had a lot of dynamics to learn. But they not only embraced me, but they embraced some philosophies that I carried over. And so I'm really excited. The first week I was on board, Dan reached out. What do you need to know? What do you need to learn? Carrie and Dan, they sat on the finance and the personnel committee. And I think it's really recognized from staff and appreciative of the dynamics of seeing different aspects from different views from different cities, to different characteristics, but they were, much alike. They both shared the intelligence around business dynamics. They shared the passion for people and making sure we had a great work environment for folks, but also the progressions of moving items up forward and making sure that there was understanding why we had to do it, why not. And then they challenged the principles and the concepts. And I think that's what we desire from the board, is to have the great working relationships, but to continue to challenge whether we're on the path to meet our strategic plan and to do what we say we're going to do. So I'm very appreciative of that. I welcome Karen and Kim Barber onto the board. I'm very excited to continue to move forward. But Dan and Carrie, thank you for your service to not only to your personal community, but the entire region that ReGen services. We're pretty excited about it, and we wish you the best. And if there's anything I ever need, I can reach out to you. I know I can. And if there's anything you need from me, you guys can reach out at any time as well. Thank you, and thank you for your service and dedication.
All right, well, thank you, everybody. Let's times are changing. Okay, we're moving on to 11, presentation of a resolution 2023 of appreciation for retired employees. Genaro Juareta. Okay, sorry. Sorter one. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe Campbell and the directors. This time we'd like to present this resolution of appreciation to Genaro Juareta. Whereas he was hired by the district as a sorter one in February 24th of 2004, and has performed the duties with diligence and conscientious manner during the 17 years here at the district. Whereas he has received 3 Charlie Benson Awards for helping with the mattress and appliance recovery program in 2004 and 2006. Whereas through his communication and consistent work ethic, operations ran smoothly. And whereas his friendly demeanor and contribute a positive working environment. Whereas he's contributed successfully to the successful accomplishment of the district's mission. Now, therefore, be resolved that the board of directors of ReGen Monterey hereby commend and express its appreciation to Genaro Juareta for his meritorious service to the district, with best wishes upon his retirement on December 31st, 2022, after 17 years of service. Passed and adopted the 20th day of January 2023 by the board of directors.
Thank you.
So I can say thank you, and I really grateful to be working for all this time for this organization. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Get a picture.
Thank you.
I was asking his supervisor and his team members, what stuck out? What was one of the things that we'll always remember? Over those 17 years, there's been a lot of changes out there at the MRF and at the public area drop off. Genaro was on the safety committee. So, in the development, the changes we had out there, he was instrumental in a lot of the safety programs and procedures we have out there that will live way past his retirement. He was also a mentor and a trainer to a lot of people out there. So there's a little bit of Genaro that will always be here, in the facility and then the people out there. So thank you.
No, thank you. That's sure.
I'd like to make a couple of comments on him. Well, I got an opportunity to speak with him. And so we're pretty excited, being a MERS sorter one is not an easy task, and to fulfill that for 17 years is a true sign of dedication and what our organization and our people represent for ReGen Monterey. I'm looking forward to hearing more from Renato. He's going to spend time with his family. He's going to take things very lightly. He's going to start enjoying his retirement. And he believes it's a blessing for him to have the opportunity to be able to retire and now spend time and fruitful time with his family. So we're very excited for you, Renato. Thank you for your service and dedication.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, this that kind of devotion is just very impressive, and we're lucky to have it here at the district, that's for sure. All right. Moving on to item 12, a presentation on biochar technology by Citos. Felipe?
Thank you, Chair. At this point, we have a few folks here. Guy is on the line as well, and Guy will do a presentation, an introduction for Mel Ryan. He's here with the Citos company. We also have Keith Day from Keith Day Industries here as well, and joining us as well. This has been a collaboration amongst multiple agencies to bring this item to the board. We turned over a lot of stones. We've asked a lot of questions. We've worked diligently with everybody that participates in this portion of what we do here on our organics streams. So we're pretty excited to introduce Citos this morning, and we're excited with the opportunity that lies in front of ReGen Monterey today. Thank you. Mr. Guy?
Yes, thank you, Felipe. Good morning, Chair Campbell and Board of Directors. This is going to be a two agenda item sequence. The first sequence that you're about to hear is a presentation for information only regarding biochar and biochar technology. And that'll be followed by a presentation that I will make on proposing some terms for a pilot study to support the investigation of biochar. So with that, I'd like to introduce Mayo Ryan of the Citos Group, and Mayo does have a presentation for us all.
Good morning. Thank you, Guy. And good morning, members of the board. Welcome to the wonderful world of biochar. Over the next 20 minutes, I'd like to give you a fairly high-level presentation about what we hope to achieve with the pilot study, who we are, and why we're doing what we're doing. I'm very grateful for the time here, and grateful for the time Board Member Shirley and Board Member Alaska gave me during the Finance Committee, especially to the ReGen staff, Felipe, Guy, Jay, and the rest of the staff that have gotten us here so far. So just in terms of housekeeping, I have about 20 minutes and then 10 minutes for questions and answers, and really everything's fair game. So in order to advance the PowerPoint presentation, is that, do we have that up? I'm not sure. Okay. Thank you. That's mine. Okay.
Just 1 second. It is linked on the agenda. I've got it.
Great. Thank you.
Sure.
No, no worries.
Do you have a PowerPoint? What's that?
It's inevitable. There are always media issues. Oh, no worries. Can you hear me well enough? Okay, great.
A little bit more.
No problem.
What's your name again?
Mayo is my first name, and the last name is Ryan, R-Y-A-N. I live in Chico, drove down last night, so I'm excited about being here today.
How were the roads? A lot of flooding?
Not bad.
Not bad, good.
Yeah, we had some significant flooding in Northern California for the last few weeks. It was, Highway 99 was flooded over. No real damage, not like you had in the Salinas River. My parents and my sister and brother lived in Carmel, and my sister got evacuated. She lives near the river.
Multiple times.
Yep, yeah, so it was not pretty for them,
Yeah.
but we're fine. And
Good.
we have all that snow, so, and
Yeah.
filling reservoirs, which is really good.
We're all very excited.
Yeah.
Yeah, in Monterey County, we have 5 different rivers, Monterey rivers that come through, and they were all maxed out at flood stage.
Yeah.
With a lot of
The concept of
evacuation.
Monterey being an island is new. That I never occurred to me that was even possible. I can do this without the presentation, but and I've got my laptop. But there's some really good stuff in the
You should
PowerPoint.
be able just to, if
Would
this
you-
is live,
Would you like,
watch the agenda and click on the link. I'm definitely.
I don't have a
I'm not sure who has
here.
control.
I don't, she's been having computer issues and they got her a new computer, so she's making that transition, so he's still running into hiccup with you and the old.
No, that's a good. Hey, guys.
Yeah, or
Maybe you can share a screen.
if Bruce has the agenda up online, we could just share his screen.
I might be able to share.
I can have one.
Ready to go now if you want.
Thank you for your patience.
Here, I'll log on to the meeting right now and I'll share my screen.
Okay, well, you need to get permission to make this share.
That's, if you guys wouldn't mind, we can hold on this item. I did see the presentation for item number 15, which is the Carlson landfill equipment, so we can jump right into it.
You want to switch?
Yes.
Okay.
As she
Great.
pulls up your presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, we are going to.
I do have it online, Felipe, if you'd like to go ahead.
Oh,
there it
awesome.
is.
All right.
Thank you, Guy.
All right, great. Thank you, guys.
So Guy, if you wouldn't mind advancing when possible, but yeah, if you can throw that on the full screen. Great. It's a little bit of a mess.
Oh.
Yeah, that's a PDF. Do you have the actual presentation?
No, just the link from the agenda.
Okay,
I don't.
We're gonna make do.
Okay.
All right.
So let's start at the top. Again, my name is Mayo Ryan. I'm a co-founder and CEO of the CEDOS Group. We are a project developer and project manager for this partnership. This would be our first. And so the partnership is comprised of Keith Day and the Keith Day Company. Steve McIntyre, who's not here with us today, he's the owner of Monterey Pacific Vineyards. And CEDOS is the manager. We'll be using Applied Gaia slow pyrolysis equipment. They're the other partner in this group. We have exclusive distribution rights to the Applied Gaia equipment. I'll get into that in just a little bit. But who are we? I am a fourth generation cotton farmer from Fresno. I've had an accredited farm manager. I have an MBA in agribusiness from Santa Clara right up the road. And started this company a year ago at my age, probably not a very smart thing to do, but I've been passionate about biochar since I first got into the biochar world a little over 4 years ago. I farmed almonds, pistachios, walnuts, wine grapes, and held some leadership positions with various ag processors. So I'm coming at this squarely from an agricultural standpoint, a soil health perspective. Sheila McDonald Kiger is the owner and patent holder for the Applied Gaia equipment. Sheila and I have been together for a little over 4 years. She's a true pioneer in the slow pyrolysis world. She started over 15 years ago inventing slow pyrolysis equipment for partners in Australia. Australia and Europe are probably 10 years in advance of where we are today in the US. James McPhail is our carbon officer. James lives in Bath in the UK and has the distinction of starting one of the very first carbon markets in Europe over 10 years ago. He has a master's in soil science. He's a soil scientist and a carbon market and biochar expert. What's not pictured is the picture of Steve McIntyre. Steve and his wife Kim formed Monterey Pacific Incorporated. They're a fairly large vineyard management firm in Soledad. Steve and his team farm over 17,000 acres of premium wine grapes in the Salinas Valley, all the way down to Paso Robles, for 60 different wineries. Steve and McIntyre Vineyards have their own winery. He and his so in-house soil scientist, Doug Beck, Doug has a PhD in soil science, have really pioneered the use of biochar in vineyards for the last 7 years. Doug published a well-regarded research study this last December talking about their experience with biochar in their vineyards. Daryl Somm is an in-house agronomist, kind of a lifetime agronomist and viticulturalist at Monterey Pacific. He's part of our team. And then our outside advisor is an environmental and film industry attorney in Los Angeles who helped me figure out how to form this company a little over a year ago. So a fairly robust management team. We've got a good group of people. If you want to scroll up just a little bit, Guy, thanks. So what we're here today to talk about is this pilot study. So what we'd like to do is deploy our first slow pyrolysis machine. Slow pyrolysis is the technology of choice if you're interested in building soil health. If we were going to generate electricity, for example, we deploy a gasification technology, or fast pyrolysis, where the feedstock's going through in seconds or very few minutes. Slow pyrolysis is a much longer process. It's residence times 15, 20, maybe 30 minutes, but we come out with a very high quality biochar. And so we'd like to have this machine show up here. It's completed. It's being manufactured about 20 minutes south of Manchester in the United Kingdom. It'll ship out of the United Kingdom around the 19th of February and arrive in California during the middle of March. So the proposal is to take the second half of the second quarter and understand how to run that machine as perfectly as we can, generate emissions data for the Monterey County Air Resources Board. We've applied for our authority to construct, but ultimately over the next year, we'd like our permit to operate. There are very few of these machines around the world. So really there is no emissions data. We're going to be developing it on our own. And then to complete a life cycle assessment for our generation of carbon credits. So that's the first few months of operation. And then from July 1st through or the end of June of 2024, we have a 1-year full production operation. So these machines operate 24/7, roughly 8,000 hours a year. We'll staff all 3 8-hour shifts, so there'll be somebody with the machine all the time. And then the goal is to, during that year, design and engineer what might become a permanent 3-machine facility. We've chosen these machines in the applied guide technology because it's scalable, it's continuous, and we can group 3, 5, or 10 machines side by side together to meet the needs, the feedstock needs of that host. Our business model is distributed. We want to go where the feedstock is, not have a centralized operation that requires a lot of different transportation. So the project cost for this pilot study is about $1.2 million. It's fully funded. We have those funds in hand. So we're not asking for anything from ReGen. We want to do this at no cost to the ReGen Monterey group. And what's really fun about this is that we've got the compost manufacturer, Keith Day, one of his largest customers, Steve McIntyre at Monterey Pacific, already in the business. So this has been happening. Steve's been buying fairly low quality biochar from Northern California, from Humboldt County. It's being shipped down, and Keith incorporates that biochar in compost. And Steve's been incorporating that in vineyards for about the last 5 or 7 years. He's developing 1,700 acres of wine grape vineyards every single year, and all of his customers are now demanding the biochar and compost treatment be incorporated into those vineyard developments. There just simply isn't enough biochar for Monterey Pacific to make that happen. So we've generated this partnership. It just lands right in the middle of what's already happening. If we were to design a perfect biochar manufacturing, compost, and agricultural incorporation, this is it. This is the perfect setup. So we're very grateful that this is happening. Next slide, if you'll just go up just a little bit. So what do? Our primary product is biochar. And as I said, our priority is soil health. And so we want a high quality biochar that only is achievable with slow pyrolysis. We can, with our slow pyrolysis technology, we can actually customize biochar for various soil types. And Monterey Pacific farms every different type of soil, from pure sand to very clay soils down in Paso Robles. So we want to be able to give them a customizable biochar for the specific soil type of the vineyards they're operating. And then beyond that, whatever agricultural applications we can make throughout the state. For every 1 ton of biochar we produce, we can generate 3 carbon removal certificates. And we're going to do that through a company called Puro Earth. Puro Earth is in Helsinki, Finland. They got their start in 2019 when they did a set of experimental biochar-based carbon auctions online, and were successful at that. They've developed a very robust methodology for accounting for carbon credits, especially biochar-based carbon credits. So successful that NASDAQ bought them last year. So NASDAQ now has a controlling interest in Puro Earth. It'll be one of the first things that we do. We'll bring a verification specialist from Puro to ReGen, and it'll take several weeks and about $55,000 to get the life cycle assessment done. We're very positive about that because there really isn't any transportation on either end. We're taking feedstocks that are being generated by the Keith Day Company, compost overs and other wasted wood products, making the biochar here, and it's going directly into the compost operation. So there's no transport. It's very carbon friendly. In addition, these machines put out a tremendous amount of heat. So each machine, 3 to 5 million BTUs per hour, we can take that heat and generate rotary power. So not wind, not solar, it's 24/7 power. And where that microgrid might need an extra little bit of power, we can put that in the microgrid. 3 machines together generate about 1 megawatt of power. Or we can take that heat and generate steam. What we've talked about with heat is potentially pasteurizing food waste. So in order to meet the SB 1383 requirements. So there are options for the heat. We haven't developed them into this pilot program, but they're available. Does everybody know what biochar is? I know the finance committee, we talked about that for a little bit. It's sometimes about 1 in 10 when we give these presentations. 1 in 10 will have heard of biochar, the rest don't. But biochar, and I've got a couple examples here. I don't know if you want to pass these around, but these are biochar examples. One is from biomass, biosolids, and the other is from wood waste. Biochar is created when a feedstock, and it can be any number of different feedstocks. In my world, it was almond shell, but rice husk, biosolids, wood and green waste, municipal wood and green waste, forest products, all make terrific biochar feedstocks. What happens is that feedstock is subjected to very intense heat in a no or limited oxygen environment. And so at those temperatures, 600 degrees to 1500 degrees Fahrenheit, everything that's not carbon is volatilized out of that feedstock. And what you end up with is this really interesting structure, this sort of graphene fractal structure. And if we were to zoom in and look at the wall of that big pore, it would look exactly like these smaller pores. One of the quality requirements, or one of the quality aspects to biochar, is its surface area. The International Biochar Initiative's minimum is 500 square meters per gram. So that in the size of a pencil eraser, if you were to flatten out this gram of biochar, it would have the surface area of a football field. What it means is that it's not really a fertilizer or a nutrient, but it does a bunch of really great stuff in soil. It's a condominium for microbes and microorganisms. It's kind of a coral reef for the soil. Because it's 85% pure carbon and recalcitrant carbon, microbes can't, they just break their teeth on it. It lasts in soil for hundreds, if not thousands of years. It's recognized by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change as a very efficient means of soil carbon sequestration, which is a negative emissions technology. So it's wonderful, not just for soil health, which is our priority, but we can sequester carbon with biochar. Next slide, Guy. Go up just a little bit. How are we doing this? There's a picture of the machine on the next slide.
I think guys controlling it.
Yeah.
It's not showing.
Oh, okay. You're showing the screen. That's okay. This is what the machine looks like. So this is an earlier version of the applied Gaia B3. This was made in Australia a few years ago and ended up in Norway, just south of Oslo, as a 2-year test bed. Our machine is about 20% larger than this. It'll be the only second in the world. The first is operating in Tamworth, Australia. I went back last summer and looked at that. Our machine on the screen, this is last August. The installation was just installed. It's finished. It's undergoing its final testing this week and next. And as I said, it will be on the boat around the 19th of February, due to arrive here in mid-March. It's a unique machine. All it does is pyrolyze feedstock. So that's not very complicated, but unique. The group of manufacturers for soil pyrolysis equipment in the world is limited to 5 or 6 different companies, and only 2 or 3 are continuous and scalable. Applied Guide is one, and the other is Pyreg. There's a Pyreg unit operating at the Redwood City Wastewater Treatment Plant. It's been there since 2018, approved by Cal EPA, US EPA, and San Mateo County on the air emissions. So we've got a little bit of an example, and we've used that example with Amy and her staff at the Monterey Air Board, so they understand about where we are. But again, that's the machine. Guy, can you go up just a little bit to the drawing? So what we have is the feedstock is entering from the left to the right, and it's held in a trough that's lined with molded ceramic insulation. And that paddle, it's not necessarily an auger, but that paddle moves the feedstock forward and also mixes it very consistently. And at those temperatures, all of the syngas, all of the volatiles are lifted out of that trough and are combusted in that yellow zone. So that yellow zone is the combustion zone. We start the process with diesel for about 2 hours. There's a diesel flame, diesel burner, get up to our temperature, 1400 degrees, turn off the diesel flame, and then it's self-sustaining. The machine is exothermic. It generates more energy than it requires to operate. So as long as we don't shut it down, it'll run indefinitely on its own, on the syngas combustion that's there. We burn everything that's not carbon. So everything that's not carbon in that machine is combusted, which means very clean, very, very little NOx, very little emissions at all, just more or less heat. So a simple process, uncomplicated. They're designed to be automated, so it could be run without staff, but we'll staff this 24/7. Next slide. This is my favorite slide. I don't know if it's going to come up well enough. Can you go up just a little bit more, Guy? Biochar is a really interesting concept. It brings together 4 kind of new generation economies: the carbon economy, which you can't see at the top, the circular economy, which is where we are all here today, a regenerative ag economy, which is based in hopes for soil improvement, and the renewable energy economy. I got into this kind of from this side over here. In late 2017, I took over an almond processing company in the North State, a 50-year-old cooperative that needed to be restarted. And in designing a $30 million almond processing plant, we started from the beginning with how do we utilize our almond shell and how do we derive benefit from almond shell. Most almond huller shellers pay to have it trucked away. Turns out it's a really good feedstock for biochar. So that was early 2018. For me, it was just about repurposing waste and finding value, hidden value in almond shell. But that year, Albert Bates and Kathleen Draper published the book Burn. I don't know if we tried to pass around a few copies. It really changed my life. I got into biochar fairly seriously and realized how biochar brought all of these different economies together. Steve and Doug Beck and Daryl at Monterey Pacific obviously got into this through the regenerative ag side of things, pursuing soil health and more productivity in their vineyards. At the almond processor, we planned and perfected the design 3 slow pyrolysis machines, 2 organic Rankine cycle machines that would generate 1 megawatt of electricity. And then that biochar went back into the almond orchards. This partnership is equally important. This is the first time globally that we can find where a biochar manufacturer is using a feedstock produced locally, and that biochar is going directly into local vineyards. It's unique in the world. The largest seller of carbon credits in the state of California is a company called Carbofix in Helsinki, Finland. They're not local, obviously. This would be a really unique and interesting story about a local process. We do close the loop here locally. So, we're interested in helping ReGen, increase their landfill diversion. Biosolids make a really interesting biochar feedstock. Obviously, we've got more wood waste and overs than we can possibly use. So this one machine pilot study will only use about 2,400 tons of wood waste, which is nothing. It's almost insignificant compared to what the Keith Day company is doing. We'll only generate 800 tons of biochar. Monterey Pacific by itself requires 10,000 tons of biochar per year. So we're going to have to go a long, long way just to meet the Monterey Pacific requirement. What's nice is all those agreements and all those people are in place. So we're not going out and having to find a biochar customer or going out and having to buy the feedstock. It's here. It's already ready to go. Next slide. The other thing that happened in 2018 was the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change published a milestone report, which talked about the need for negative emissions. They said for the first time that completely reducing fossil fuel emissions wasn't going to get us there. If we're interested in climate mitigation, completely reducing fossil fuel emissions wasn't going to get us to the 1.5 degrees by 2050 that we needed. There was going to have to be a series of negative emissions technologies to pull carbon from the atmosphere. And it gave us 6 negative emissions technologies for carbon dioxide removal. The top 3 you can't really see on this slide are nature-based, afforestation, reforestation, PICS, which is pyrogenic carbon capture and storage, that's where we are. And then just really soil carbon sequestration by improving your farming techniques. So going to cover crops and regenerative ag, no-till, and then 3 technology-based negative emissions solutions, enhanced weathering, rock weathering, bioenergy, carbon capture and storage. And what we hear about all the time is direct air capture. That's what was in the Inflation Reduction Act, billions of dollars to go to direct air capture. We're PICS, we're the most simple, most efficient. This is about as easy as it gets for negative emissions carbon removal, is making biochar and sequestering that carbon in soil. So we've answered the additionality issue, we've answered the permanence issue, and we can start it here. So right now, there just aren't a lot of people around the world doing this. We would be one of the first. Next slide. This is why we're doing this. We interrupt the cycle, the carbon cycle. This is a really interesting picture. I'm sorry you can't see all of it. My world, the analogy would be an almond tree through photosynthesis. That almond tree, its life is about 25, 30 years long. It absorbs all of the carbon from the atmosphere and stores that carbon in its wood, in its almonds, its shell, its leaves. But about every 25 or 30 years in California, 20 to 40,000 acres of almond trees are pushed because they're at the end of their life. Until now, till a carb burning ban, most of those orchards were burned in place. Today, they're grinding up that orchard and spreading that wood waste around the orchard. Well, what's happening is all of that carbon is being re-released back into the atmosphere as it decays. So they're not really doing anything to solve carbon issues. They're not sequestering any carbon. It's the same release of carbon. What we do is interrupt that process through pyrolysis and taking that wood and green waste and making biochar out of it. So we can take 50% of that carbon, put it back in the soil, and then with the heat generated from these machines, we can generate either electricity. So this is a electric supply from a renewable fuel source that's non-combustion. So we go a long, long way into interrupting the carbon cycle. That's why we're doing this. We're interested in soil health. This is a very nice, clean, and easy way of soil carbon sequestration and climate mitigation. Next slide. Why is this important in California? In 2020, in January, Lawrence Livermore Lab published the report Getting to Neutral. And it talked about how in the world we're in California going to be able to meet these climate change issues and get rid of all this waste. We produce 40 million tons of waste in the state per year. About 1 million of that is almond shell, which is buried or not really burned.
Reports for Taylor Farms.
So that's where I came to this, is how do we solve the almond shell problem? But we've got 40 million tons of wood waste that we need to deal with every single year. We're here. In my lifetime, I won't be able to solve this problem, but we can start here at ReGen in Monterey. The carb burning ban and SB 1383 are going to impact the disposal of that material. So where do we start? Here's a good way to start addressing those issues with the carb burn ban and SB 1383 and improving that landfill diversion rate. Next slide. Where is it? Here's where it is. Monterey is you've got kind of a perfect mix of agricultural waste, biosolids, forest and wood and green waste. So this is an ideal place to start. Ag waste is present throughout the Central Valley, and municipal solid waste more in the southern part of the state with forest residues. The applied guided technology and the machine that we'll bring here can burn all of those, can utilize all of those feedstocks in the creation of biochar. So really we can, what we perfect here and design here can be expanded and scaled throughout the entire state. We can really solve a lot of these issues. Next slide. So how is it being, oh, you're not going to be able to see, shoot. So Steve and Monterey Pacific take the compost that's generated by Keith Day and apply it as they're developing vineyards. So they're taking this and they're applying this in a delve that's about 4 feet deep. And so they're applying this to land that's been developed. Oops, here's the delve. It's about 4 feet deep. And they're putting 10 tons in that 4-foot delve, which is the equivalent of about 50 tons per acre. And then they've got another machine that they've designed that's taking that that compost in the walls and blending them together. And I think you're over the last 5 or 7 years, your productivity is at 6% or something like that. So it's not just improving the productivity of vineyards, but all the different various wine grape qualities without the addition of any extra water. So again, all these improvements in productivity and wine grape quality without any more water use. So Monterey Pacific's been incorporating this into their vineyard developments, but lately also incorporating this into existing vineyards with this machine that's just shanking in about 1.5 foot down, I think, 18 inches down into the soil along the root zone. So they're applying the biochar to the root zone where it needs to be. So this is, as I said earlier, this is a really nice closed loop where the biochar that we manufacture that Keith Day is incorporating into his compost is going directly into Monterey Pacific Vineyards. It's a very nice, elegant solution. Next slide. The need for slow pyrolysis is shown in these slides. This is a study that Iowa State and Cornell did. Cornell in Ithaca is kind of the biochar pyrolysis institute in the US. They've done more research than anybody. So if you're interested in this, Cornell's website is terrific. But they did this study a few years ago, and what this shows is pH levels and soil organic matter level in both the Salinas and the San Joaquin valleys. You can see that, in high pH areas, we would need a very different kind of biochar than in low pH areas. That can't be achieved through pyrolysis, fast pyrolysis or gasification. Only slow pyrolysis will allow us to customize a biochar for the various soils so that as farmers adopt regenerative ag practices and want to replace artificial synthetic inputs with biochar, we need to be able to produce a customizable biochar. So thus the slow pyrolysis technology. So ultimately, this is our market, our growers in all of these different areas. Next slide. And I'll wrap it up here. Oh, so this is what we're proposing. So really, it's as I said earlier, a no transportation project. The feedstocks are coming in. The Keith Day company is generating a significant amount of overs and wood waste that they aren't putting in the compost yard. So we can use all of that as feedstock. We'd love to test biosolids as biochar feedstock. So that's available here. And then the biochar as quickly as we produce it and as soon as we can is getting in. The earlier we can add biochar to compost, the better that compost is going to be. So everything's right here in-house, and that's what the project looks like. For this first plant, we don't need a lot of space. The machine is about 50 feet long with supply equipment. It fits on the back of a 40-foot trailer. It's being shipped in a 40-foot container, so it's somewhat transportable. It's not a permanent installation, and as I said earlier, it's about a 1-year pilot study. So we hope to generate a terrific amount of information from this study and look forward to doing it here with you. So that's the amount of my comments. I'm open to any kind of questions that you might have. And Steve McIntyre's in the room now. So you've got all 3 partners in the project here in the room.
Great. Yeah, thank you. That was a fascinating presentation.
It's a bit of an Alice in Wonderland rabbit hole, but fascinating and worthy of the effort.
Yes, great. Bruce, you have a question or two?
Yeah, I'd like to ask our staff, Guy Petroberg and Felipe, are there any downsides to this proposal for our district?
I don't see any downsides. I think what it does, it gives us an opportunity to look at a technology with no investment on our side. They're going to staff the equipment. They'll work alongside with Monterey Pacific and Keith Day Industries. I think it has a lot more upsides is we'd like to test those biosolids. It would help our neighboring Monterey One Water Agency with some solutions for the existing dry beds there. I think there's opportunity with investigating the findings that we will find and explore whether this is a trek that we would want to continue after the pilot study. But at this point, the discussion started very high level. They got more in detail, and we try to turn over every stone to find any negative, positions or risks that we would be putting ourselves in. They've done all the work up to this point, the presentations, meeting with MBARD, which is our air resources agency there. They've worked on all the details to make this happen with little or no effort from our staff, other than time and responses on the risk question that you asked, Mayor Delgado. So at this point, I don't see any risk. At this point, we'll have a way out at the end of the 1 year. There is no obligation. But I think the findings that we get throughout the process will be what we can utilize to continue to move our efforts forward here at ReGen Monterey. So thank you for your question, Mayor.
All right, well then, I'm excited because it reminds me of the anaerobic digester early stages of us contemplating that technology. And I'm glad we did that. And this looks maybe even better, but we'll see. Thank you very much, Felipe. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Bruce. Leo.
Yeah, I'm a bit confused. You're heating wood chips in the absence of that oxygen, driving off in the heat, you're driving off all the volatile gases in the wood chips, and then you burn them. Don't they, what you're burning does not that include carbon, which then becomes carbon dioxide?
So in that trough, if you can remember the picture that I showed, where the biomass is feeding in that trough, nothing in that trough is actually catching fire. Nothing is being combusted. So the EPA and Cal EPA look at slow pyrolysis as a non-combustion technology. What is getting combusted is everything that's not carbon. The biochar feedstock, it might be almond shell or biosolids. What comes out looks very much like what went in. So the compost overs, the wood pieces, when they come out as biochar, look a lot like what went in, only they're black, but they're completely chemically altered. It's called a thermo decoupling. It's just not the same product that went in. So all of the lignins and cellulose and hemicellulose has been taken away from that product, combusted above to generate the heat. And what ends up coming out, it looks the same, but it's almost pure carbon, 85% pure carbon. I'm not sure that answered your question.
Well, it seems to me that the volatile gases that are driven off and then ignited
Yes.
would also contain carbon.
So there might be about 15% carbon in that that gets consumed. We end up with about an 80 to 85% pure carbon biochar that comes out of the end of it. And what's not included in that is consumed by in the reaction, the pyrolysis reaction.
How is this different from making charcoal briquettes and
It's
grinding them up into?
It's essentially the same. Charcoal is the difference between biochar and charcoal is that biochar is charcoal that's used for a biological purpose. It's used for soil health and as a soil amendment. Charcoal is used for fuel and heating. So we're not combusting this. It never gets lit on fire. It gets incorporated into soil as an additive. That's really the only difference. Production process is fairly
Grind
similar.
them by charcoal briquettes and put them in the ground and
It could be that, yeah, that's probably possible. There are other technologies. This is a fairly sophisticated technology in the pyrolysis world. There are open kilns in Northern California that are being used in forest settings. Pits, you can line a pit and cover it to keep the oxygen limited. And you'll end up with a very crude supply of biochar. So our goal, because our priority is soil health, is to create the highest quality nature-based biochar that we can. And that really dictated the technology that we're applying.
No question.
Yes.
This is, because I'm new at this, I have a question. Where does all the wood waste come from again?
Well, I think that's
It's just through our composting process and all of the recovery of wood inbound. But we screen from we grind our material, compost it, and then we screen it to like a 3/8 particle size. And some of the overs that we call overs that come out of that is what they're gonna be we're gonna be reprocessing those to go to make biochar. So it's within our system already in our flow of material that.
But where does that come from? Is that houses that are torn down, fences, vineyards that are
Right.
taken out? Is that a combination of all those?
It's a combination, not so much C and D, it's more of the quality of biochar comes from like a green waste, branches, leaves, stuff like that, a little bit more. More trees, natural wood creates a little higher quality of biochar, even though they can make biochar from all these other materials also, but it's more of, I guess, trees, branches, leaves, more of that type of wood, a woodier product is preferred to what they're.
To answer your question, is
Your household.
this is trees being removed, tree trimmings, they're all coming into the compost operation here at ReGen Monterey, which Keith is making into compost. So the supply of wood and green waste is almost infinite here. It's never ending. And what we're using as our biochar feedstock initially are overs, which even Keith can't make into compost. So I think the overs are going into alternative cover.
Yeah, this is the step to maximize the byproduct that we have.
Right.
And to address director's question around where does the material come? Some of it's gonna come from residential homes, some of it is coming from commercial and the local south also, gardeners, people that are doing equipment, and then lately with a natural disasters, trees that have fallen over will be cited to come here as a facility that can take that material and process it into the compost that we have today. So it's the normal practice of what we do. We are already receiving this material in. It's just to maximize the material. The findings are going over, they're going to the face of the landfill and they're taking landfill space. So if we can do something with the byproduct, and I think that's where we're at currently with our organization is still looking, and the reason why we approved feasibility is to look at all these byproducts that are generated off our streams that we currently receive today and do less of putting into the landfill and do more with technology to drive our diversion and keeping waste out of the landfill. So this is just another edge into technology, and there is substantial benefits. There's water impacts. There's currently we're faced with challenges with well water and ag water, adding nitrates into our drinking water. We believe that in the future you may see this biochar being distributed to protect some of those wells and absorb the nitrates from the soils and retain them within the existing. So there's many facets of it. But to answer your question, it's material that we're already receiving daily here at this facility.
Okay, as a follow-up question, we have a lot of compostable products that also go into some of our waste stream. Will this biochar?
Monterey Pacific is already using that compost in its vineyards. So yes, what we hope to do is incorporate this biochar into that compost, as is happening now with biochar that's imported. So really, we're not doing anything different than what's already being done. The goal is to do this with higher quality biochar. What we've talked about internally, and we haven't really perfected yet, is the use of this byproduct heat to pasteurize food waste. So in order to more easily comply with SB 1383 and the use of food waste in compost, which can't be used in compost today, we might be able to pasteurize this in some form or another with the heat that comes off the machines. I'm not sure. I hope that answered your question.
Yes, it does. And I also want to ask you about this picture here. I assume those are the windrows that.
Those are the windrows of compost that the Keith Day Company has developed. This is a satellite shot, I think, from early 2022. We don't need a lot of space. We need a 50 by 50 foot space. As I said, this is temporary, so the machine's on skids. It'll sit on the ground and is secured and almost completely self-contained. We do need a water tank. We'll have a 300-gallon poly water tank there. We put moisture back into the biochar as it comes out of the machine, just to keep dust to a minimum. And then that product goes into the compost pile almost immediately. The sooner we can get the biochar into the compost, the better off both the compost and the biochar are. I mean, landfill, the interesting thing is a year ago, the term landfill diversion just never lived in my brain, but it is today. And I think this is an interesting way for us to increase the landfill diversion here at ReGen. Our tagline is a regenerative future. We've been around since the the renaming of this to ReGen. So we kind of think this is a really elegant potential partnership.
One more question.
Sure.
Does this have any smell associated with it? Because in the past, we've had.
Quite the opposite. So biochar, there's a significant amount of research that shows that biochar in compost significantly reduces the smell. Not just the smell, but it contains ammonia and methane. So biochar in compost is a significant, poses a significant reduction in methane and odor from the compost operation. So many benefits by putting biochar into the compost operation.
All right, and one last question.
Sure.
So after this pilot project, would you be coming to us with what you think it would cost for the district to continue or expand a program at that point? Because you're doing this for free now.
Yeah.
But at the end of that, I would anticipate you would have a.
Yeah, the long-term goal here at ReGen and potentially with Monterey One Water is a permanent multi-machine facility. These machines are designed to last for 20 or 30 years. It's like a boiler. It'll be around long after I'm dead and buried. But yes, we would hope that during the year we could come to a engineering and design plan that contemplates a permanent facility here. Exactly.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
I have just a couple,
Sure.
and thank you for the question about odor. I appreciate that. It's been a challenge that we've had
Sure.
in the broader community. And also wanted to thank Director Delgado for the question about sort of drawbacks or risk. I think that's an important question to put on the table. So in terms of the research piece of it, is our research partner that's associated or a university collaboration? I know our CSUMB.
No, not at this
right
time.
here.
There's potential for that.
Okay.
It's not just educational institutions. Part of our business plan is to have a significant community outreach. This carbon footprint that we'll generate here is interesting from a municipal standpoint. This is a negative carbon footprint. So how do we utilize that negative carbon footprint in the community and for community benefit? Haven't really explored that in much detail, but it's all there.
Okay, I know Dr. Hoffa at CSUMB just secured a large grant and they're looking at some of these very issues right now.
It's a biochar and biochar is a big buzzword right now. I mean, there's a lot of work. When I started this a little over 4 years ago, almost 5 years ago, there were only 10,000 research reports on biochar in existence. Today, it's 10,000 per year.
Okay.
Cornell is a really great source for this, but just Google biochar. There's a lot out there.
Okay. And then your funding model. So this is the pilot portion would be for us, but if you could just speak to what the funding streams are that you're using to.
So the source of funding for this project is Monterey Pacific. And Steve at Monterey Pacific. So he is our partner, largest shareholder and benefactor. To expand the sale of carbon credits, the forward sale of carbon credits, grants and non-dilutive funds are our goal in order to expand the business. So this is a pilot project, but we'd like to learn use what we learned here to expand the business.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Bill.
Thank you very much.
No, you're welcome.
Fascinating. And obviously, your partners have done a tremendous amount of work on this. It's very impressive. Following up on the earlier questions about the carbon removal certificates.
Yes.
Going forward, if this were implemented, how much of the economics of this whole process depend on sale of certificates?
It's significant. When we started this project years ago, the existence of carbon removal certificates, there weren't any. The very first biochar-based carbon certificates, as I mentioned, were developed by Pro Earth in 2019. Just 2021, late 2021, 2022, the world of carbon removal certificates has really expanded. You see companies like Microsoft who not only want to be carbon negative going forward, but want to make up for all their carbon emissions since the beginning of the company. Microsoft's the largest buyer of carbon removal certificates out there. Shopify, Meta, Frontier, all formed a company called Frontier Carbon last year. They put a fund of $900 $25 million, so you're almost $1 billion for the expansion of groups like ours to generate carbon credits. So initially, to answer your question, it was all about the sale of biochar. A one machine plant is really, we're budgeting a slight positive cash flow, but a one machine plant really isn't an economic model. A 3 machine plant and above is where we can start generating some decent cash flow, and quite a bit of that comes from the sale of carbon credits. The demand for carbon credits today vastly outweighs the supply. And so this is quite a unique situation. As I said earlier, this is a very interesting closed loop where we can generate carbon credits here at ReGen, and they can get into the vineyard, a local vineyard. That's a very interesting story. So we hope that our quality of carbon credits is fairly high as the quality of our biochar is. So it's an interesting story. Carbon credits today are selling for about $300 a ton, and biochar is selling, Steve and Monterey Pacific buying biochar for about $300 a ton. At that, one machine plant pencils, but ultimately the goal is a 3 machine plant or more. Machines side by side.
Sorry, when you said significant, is it half?
The sale of carbon
gross
credits,
revenue?
the sale of carbon credits for us would be about 2/3 of the revenue stream. Mhm.
And then the other question, and this more for district staff, I didn't
Sure.
understand. The composting operation. Part of that gets diverted to the landfill. I'm looking at Nikki today. I wasn't aware of that. It's my ignorance.
Well, there is stuff that gets diverted to the landfill for daily cover that you can use for daily cover. We were obviously trying to divert more into uses like this and make more of that material sustainable in different ways. And I guess my comment to a lot of this and why I felt this was such a great new innovation to bring to the district was in our industry, the soil amendment industry, and a little relationship with myself and Steve. We've been doing business for over 20 years now. And I've been growing with him, and he's one of the biggest vineyard, in Monterey County. And they're always innovative, trying new technologies and new soil health. And we've been able to grow with him, and that's where I thought this partnership would be great because of his innovation, the size they are. They're a big user of our compost, probably over 20,000 tons a year from our operations that he purchases from us now. But then this, I think, going forward with all of our food waste, all of our diversion, all of the bacteria, everything we're trying to do with food waste in it to make it more sustainable and more pathogen free for our ag markets here in Monterey County is very, very huge, I feel, for the future of diverting our compost. One of our things was this thing generates a fair amount of heat. And we were looking at using that heat for further pathogen reduction, which ensures us food safety quality in the industry, in our ag industry around here is huge. So there was a lot of benefits, and that's where, I couldn't see anybody better. And I felt really good about introducing Monterey Pacific, Steve Mayo to the group because of just great business people, good model, bringing the innovation to the district and to keep us on the forefront of competition and making our products better and more valuable. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
Just real quick. Well, I'm with Leo on the non-combustion combustion part. Again, I'll have to figure that out a little more. It's and then just to reiterate the odor part, just because I feel like you answered a slightly different question.
Sure.
The exhaust, what's coming out of the actual plant, will that have?
We expect very little NOx or very little VOCs coming out of the plant. Theoretically, they're all combusted within the chamber. I went down to Australia to look at the only other machine that's operating in the world, and it was putting out nothing but heat. A similar machine is at the Redwood City treatment plant. It's a little more complex than ours. It separates the combustion zone from the pyrolysis zone, so a little more complex. But it was approved in 2018 by San Mateo County. So one of the more stringent air quality control County's San Mateo approved that machine. We think this is a cleaner machine than that. But again, that's the purpose of the pilot study and the 1-year test is to immediately gather whatever emissions data we can.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for the excellent presentation. One critique might be as good as it was, you might want to emphasize the wine a little more next time.
Sure. We're there. Thank you for your time.
And all right, and no, thank you for that presentation, which I think leads us, I'm correct, right into the action part. 13, approve general terms for an agreement between the CETOS Group and ReGen Monterey for biochar technology pilot study. Felipe?
Yes, thank you, Chair. At this point, we're gonna look at the terms with CETOS on the biochar. And this is the proposition that's been brought forward, and we really worked on the timing to make sure that we can get the most results from putting this machine to use. And I think we've demonstrated all the capacities that it has. So Mr. Guy will go through another short presentation as we cover the terms of the pilot study.
Yes, good morning again, Board of Directors. The past presentation was information only, and by the CETOS Group. They approached ReGen in November of last year and introduced their interest for performing the pilot study. And since that time, we've had several meetings and have discussed aspects of the study and pulled together a short list of terms that might be used to prepare an agreement that the board can review at another meeting. So the scope of this agenda item is to present those proposed terms for the board's review and consideration of giving guidance to staff for whether or not to pursue the pilot study, and if to pursue the pilot study, what kind of terms would the board guide staff to use. So again, this is a pilot study. As introduced, it involves a partnership of the CETOS Group with the Keith Day Company. Keith Day Company has been in the business in the county for several decades and has been with the service provider to ReGen since 2009. For the new board members, there's been composting of organic, yard waste, green waste type materials for about 30 years now. One of Keith Day Company's long-term customers is Monterey Pacific, and together with the equipment provider Applied Gaia forms the partnership for the pilot study. And here's a little better look at that slide that was shown in the previous presentation, showing the parties involved in the CETOS Group and the partnership here. As mentioned, biochar is a stabilized product that's resulting from a heat transformation process that's occurred naturally over millenniums. As there are forest fire or volcano events that have heat transformation. But what we're talking about here in the pilot study is equipment control process of pyrolysis. And what's proposed specifically for ReGen site is to use woody materials received at the site. These are larger diameter branches and stumps. Also, what's been referred to as compost overs. Those are also called chips, wood chips, because they are a larger particle that aren't appropriate for some compost products. And they currently have some limited beneficial use at the landfill for waste cover, but the proposal to use them in the pilot study would be to additionally keep them out of the landfill, upgrade their potential beneficial reuse to become a biochar that is used as an admix into the organic compost that the Keith Day Company produces. The location is the existing Windrow composting site shown here, which is just to the south of where the boardroom is and where you're seated today. It is in that green shaded area there towards the center, lower center area, which was the location for the former pilot study around a dry anaerobic digestion process.
Excuse me, guys, sorry to interrupt, but so is this part of the terms, the location?
It is, yes.
Okay, so I just want to stay focused on the terms if we can. Thanks.
Okay. So I will be coming to the terms in the agreement or proposed here just shortly. So there's a little bit of review over scope of the study itself. This is why one would look at biochar. I do want to advise the board that concurrently there is a joint feasibility study that Monterey One Water and ReGen have invested in and are kicking off at this time, and that joint feasibility study will have biochar assessments as part of that study, along with other technologies. So there's kind of a concurrent evaluation of biochar being done by staff. It's through the joint feasibility study assessments that the separate consultant will do. And it'll be supplemented from information gained by the Citrus Group pilot study, should the board wish to pursue that pilot study. The biochar process basically interrupts some of the disposal of these materials. This particular slide shows sewage sludge as an additional material that could go to biochar. It's not primary to the pilot study, but we have asked for an opportunity to investigate the conversion of biosolids during the Citrus Group pilot study, should the board approve it. So that if we are able to do that, that would supplement information that the feasibility study would have access to. Here's a graphic that kind of shows the compost overs and the woody feedstock going to the pyrolysis equipment, and the biochar being produced from that equipment. Also illustrates the heat vectors that are there. Those will not be captured as part of the pilot study, but I believe the feasibility assessment will be assessing the extent of the benefit of capturing that heat for either electricity generation or other processes like sterilizing the food waste, drying the biosolids. Those are a couple examples of how that heat could be used. For the pilot study, that the biochar produced would be an admixture into the organic compost that Keith Day already produces. couple images of the equipment being prepared by the Applied Gaia company. And reminder that there will be as part of this pilot study, there will be an assessment of the carbon content of the biochar and what kind of credit or certificates can be assigned to that product. For one of the terms of the agreement is the schedule. What is planned is a pilot study that would go until end of June of next year, with the optional extension of 1 year should all parties wish to continue the pilot study for 1 year. This is just a summary of the pilot study goals that were presented to you by the Citrus Group. It's really, investigating the process and the products produced of the process, and characterizing emissions of the process. The relationships in the pilot study, should it be approved, is that ReGen would provide access to land, water, electricity, and at cost, where any costs incurred by ReGen would be compensated for by the Citrus Group. ReGen would also provide access to biomass materials, and at no cost to the Citrus Group. The Citrus Group would provide the capital, equipment, site improvements, utilities. They would own, deliver, operate, maintain the equipment. They're responsible for permitting, local air permits, local building permits. And they would manage the pilot study. They would be operating the equipment. They would be collecting the data. They would be summarizing findings from the Pure Earth assessments and the data they collect at the site. A summary of how we see the term of the pilot study. Assuming board approval today, we would draft an agreement and bring it to the Finance Committee in February. If the Finance Committee supports the agreement, we would bring it to the board in February. If the board were to approve it, we'd get the agreement signed, and equipment setup and startup would occur sometime in second quarter. There would be some permitting that would have to be accomplished with the Air District and the Building Department before then. Again, the pilot study end date is proposed as June 30th of next year, with the possible 1 year extension of a pilot study. Again, ReGen to provide access to the materials. No minimum or maximums are committed by either party. The general agreement is to provide sufficient materials for the one piece of equipment. And ReGen would make arrangements for biosolid materials should that be added to the scope of the pilot study. Responsibilities of the Citrus Group, mob and demob of equipment, the first pilot machine that was discussed earlier, complete the permitting, complete the Pure Earth life cycle assessment, obtain emissions data for future air permitting, the permit to operate the equipment, gather operational data, provide the capital investment and manage the study. Again, summarizing our responsibilities, provide access to land utilities at costs reimbursed to ReGen. Compensation to the Citrus group is not expected for the pilot study. And compensation from the Citrus group to reimburse any costs that the ReGen should incur is anticipated at cost. So that's the summary of the pilot study terms. It's also in the board report package there that might be a little easier for you to look at. And the finance committee did receive a similar presentation and asked us to bring that forward to you today. So be glad to answer any questions.
Great, thank you. Wendy, go ahead.
Yeah, so just as I sit here, I'm looking straight at our new strategic plan for 2022 to 2030, which speaks to innovation, continue to expand cutting edge solutions that move us closer to a zero waste community. So, I mean, for all purposes, this seems to align with that. I didn't see in the draft terms of an agreement anything about indemnification for either party. I'm not sure if that's something our attorneys want to weigh in on, or if we'll have a time that will come back to us later. And then just another question about in terms of the data generated from the study, just the ownership of that data, and if there's anything proprietary that would be an outcome of that needs to be addressed in the contract. So I don't need an answer to that today, but I think when we approve a final document, I would want to make sure that those.
I can answer. I can answer both of those questions, and others can give feedback. So the agreement that would be written from the guidance that the board gives around terms would include those standard clauses of identification. And there is some limited information that is proprietary. I don't believe it's going to be the raw data or the presentation of the operation. I believe it's equipment related details.
Great, thank you, Bruce. You're muted.
Thank you, Chair. I wasn't sure that you called on me. I couldn't hear. But love everything that we've heard today. And just want to ask if we can be explicit in some document about the costs and benefits to each side, so that, you know, we're on the same page. So that would mean, you know, what are the benefits to Citos, you know, short-term and long-term, and what are the benefits to us? And they're kind of obvious, but the one I'm really thinking of right now that I'm not sure that was addressed, maybe I missed it, was will Citos benefit financially in the future? And then considering that, might we benefit financially in the future by having a long-term after the pilot? And the lease amount for the land, do they use the land for free? And I would guess they would use it for free if they don't have much financial gain, but that they might pay a higher price if they had a lot of financial gain potential. So can staff speak to that disclosure type benefit costs?
Yes, thank you for the question, Mayor. I appreciate the question. I think at this point, they're gonna be a little bit in the positive based off the small unit that we have, but the discussion has Citos, Monterey Pacific have entertained our position on land lease, also road maintenance, facility maintenance, all those items. As we approach the end of the pilot study, those items will all be on the table, so that the benefit financially would come in the future after pilot program for the Citos company and for ReGen. At that point, we could entertain how big of a scope, what were the results, and we could entertain the above items. And they've been open in that discussion as preparation for the question coming from the board is that we did want to have a benefit to ReGen for the property use, the maintenance, the management, and any other supplies we would provide along the way. So it is entertained, and we would believe that would happen after year one, as we looked at a larger scale of economy for the product that would be produced from biochar technology.
All right, so that well covers the foreseeable future. And for the pilot stage, I think that if it's successful, this company would go elsewhere and hopefully stay here too. And they would use our name as their initial partner, and that use of our name has a tremendous value. And so I would think that even in the pilot stage, there is potential value for CITOS to partner with us as vice versa. So pilot stage, shared economics agreement, lease value, is it a $0? Is that the proposal?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Great comments. Bill?
I just wanted to follow up on the question and answer to Director Askey's question about proprietary information. I think, not knowing any of the details, it seems like it would be advantageous that the agreement would spell out that any proprietary information is not disclosed to the district, which is, or they realize that it is discoverable under the California Public Records Act. So that covers us, everybody's expectations or not. And the other one is, I didn't quite understand, this pilot is proposed for siting on property that's already leased, correct? So I'm like.
It's not leased. It's a section that is not part of the lease agreement with Key Day Industries. It's a segment that sits laterally to the composting facility. So it's actually where the old existing anaerobic digester sits today. So it'd be staged in that same area there. So it's actually not part of the lease agreement with Key Day Industries.
So it will be leased to.
Yes.
See, thank you.
Quick comment.
Approach the podium.
Oh, I'm so sorry. We did execute a mutual non-disclosure agreement with ReGen Monterey very early in the process. And so we felt very comfortable about being as transparent as we possibly can with our business plans. We did have a session with Helen and Felipe and Guy where we went through the economic model, and we're happy to do that going forward. When we do get there and we have to sort of look at what's proprietary to Applied Gaia as the machine related data, we can cross that bridge when we get there. But our goal is to be as transparent as we can, knowing that we've got the NDA in place with ReGen.
We got Rob involved with at that point, so we could know the potential risk for the public record request that we could have. So that was also shared with the CITOS company as a potential avenue to request some information around it. But Rob heavily vetted that out with staff and the two supporting agencies.
But it's our intent to be as transparent as possible. Thank you.
Yes, I have a question regarding the quality of the biomass that comes in to be used in this process. And you may already know, I don't know what you've discussed in the past, but we've had a very successful public partnership with big events in our area. The AT&T, the US Open, the marathon, the half marathon, coastal routes, etc., where they have done tremendous work transitioning from recyclable cups and cutlery to compostable. And will this program address the use of those products as well, or does it have to be strictly plant material? Because those products are plant-based. So I'm wondering, because we do want to have a zero waste community, and we really don't want to have to be forced to go back to the kind of products that were used before those events if we don't have to. So I don't know, does this process accommodate that?
I'll go ahead and take the first attempt to. I don't believe this here would address compostable items. But you will see an item coming in the next month that will address compostable items. So not particular with this position here, but we will be bringing a future item at the next board meeting that will address compostables and potentially working with our sister agency, Monterey One Water, to create a solution for compostable items that are added into food waste.
I just would like them to answer the
Sure.
question, can they digest or
Yes.
biochar those type of materials?
Quickly, our use with the one machine pilot study, will only utilize about 2,500 tons of wood waste from the keep day. It's an almost insignificant number, even the compost overs. But pyrolysis will actually could consume plastics. So there's really no limit. Heavy metals are difficult. But quite a lot of feedstocks are available for us. Here at ReGen, the vast majority of it is municipal wood and green waste. And so we would, it'd take a long time and a lot of machines to exhaust that supply before we got into other compostable products. But we're open to trying and working with anything that we can get.
Yeah, well, it's something we can look at when we look at the
As we would with the biosolids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, in terms of the biosolids, Guy, in your report, you mentioned that we would arrange for the biosolid material if they were to try those out. Have we spoken to M1? Are they in support of this pilot study as well?
You're muted, Guy.
Yes, thank you. We have just briefly briefed M1 about the pilot study being proposed and to be considered by the board. And they have separately investigated it at an earlier in an earlier year. And it's our understanding that they M1W still considers assessing biochar as a potential option. And that's what the joint feasibility study will be one of those aspects in the joint feasibility study.
So that was my second question in terms of the feasibility study, because the results of the feasibility study, as I understand, is supposed to be coming out in July or August. Whereas this pilot project wouldn't get up and running fully until June. So I'm just wondering, like, it seems like a month isn't quite enough to create a report for a feasibility study in July.
Yes, there is challenges on the timing of information, as you've indicated. There is existing information in other case studies around biosolids to biochar. So that's what the feasibility study will be using. I think for the pilot study, some early operational data around processing wood chips would become available to the pilots or to the feasibility study.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
And general information for the new board members is that ReGen has been the service provider for biosolids disposal in the landfill since the wastewater treatment plant began operation in the early 90s. And so we will have material available for the pilot study. It will need to be dried, though. It is at too high a moisture content for the purpose of the pyrolysis process.
Great. Thank you. All really good questions and comments. And my one comment, I'm sure the attorneys and everybody will do this anyway, but also just when we do have the option to extend a year and then perhaps extend again, that those dates are clear, when those options are supposed to be whatever exercise, so we don't run right up to the 11th month and 15th day and suddenly go, wait a minute, they gotta tear it all down or whatever. Anyway, I'm sure that'll be in there and considered. I'm gonna open this up to public comment. Is there any public comment on this item, which is to approve terms of the Citus Group's biochar technology pilot study? If you're in the chamber, please approach the podium. If you're online, please raise your hand.
I should have had one.
Thank you, Ida. Seeing no public comment, I'm closing public comment on this item. Is there any more board member comments? Ready here to make a motion?
Oh, I'll move approval.
Thank you.
I'll second.
All right, thank you, Kim, Wendy for the first and Kim for the second. So the motion is to approve terms of the Citus Group's biochar technology pilot study for, I'm sorry, that's the terms pilot study, so that a draft agreement can be developed for the pilot study and subsequently presented to the board for further consideration and approval in February 2023. I will.
Through the chair, just verify that it's the terms as well as the additional discussion items that were raised. So
Yes.
just to clarify that.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you, yes. We just discussed all that. All right, thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Director Askew,
Aye.
Director Blackwelder,
Yes.
Director Delgado,
Yes.
Director Polito,
Yes.
Director Pete.
Aye.
Vice Chair Shirley,
Yes.
Chair Campbell,
Yes,
motion passes.
great, it's
Leo.
Leo.
Oh, Leo, I'm sorry. Director Laska.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. That's it passes 8 with one absent. Thank you very much. We're gonna actually switch 14 and item 14 and 15 right now, so we can help somebody get out of it. So we'll go to 15, which is authorize the general manager to approve purchase of the Carlson landfill equipment guidance system from RDO Integrated Controls in the amount of $357,000, which includes a 10% contingency.
Thank you, Chair. At this moment, we're going to be introducing Staff David, our senior engineer, has done a lot of work with Katie O'Connor as well, and Guy. Also Randy Evanger, our HEO manager for the landfill. A lot of time and effort has been put into looking at this technology. This technology's been forfeited in the industry for some time now. Some of the responses I got back on the technology is, why haven't we done this any sooner? It's a measurement of our fill capacity and the fill rate. Normally, we don't really see any reports or any findings of only on an annual basis. We receive that currently now. With the new technology, we'll see that real time. We can review it after a day's worth of work. Are we getting full compaction? If we can get better compaction, we'll see that there's savings for the district or future revenues that could be inserted into the landfill. So this is a technology that we feel will drive some efficiencies and effectiveness and really start capturing our ability of filling, and are we doing a good job or not. This will really render the information that we need. Currently, Randy goes out there, puts his thumb up there, works with the engineers, they look at field plans, often are difficult, and the plans change daily. After weather, after impacts, over, more material than what we'd expected, less material than what we'd expected, rain preparation. This will all harness a little bit of what we're doing. And I think it'll alleviate some of the pressures, the individual pressures of performing and getting the field to a point of almost perfection, and really getting the results that we're looking for to save and mitigate time on the landfill life. And we can actually extend that with this kind of technology. So I'm pretty excited about it. David, thank you for all your research, Katie, and all the inputs from the rest of the team. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Felipe. Morning, Chair Campbell and members of the Board of Directors. My name is David Ramirez. I'm the senior engineer here at the district. And if you'll indulge me for a couple of minutes, I'd like to invite you on a trip down memory lane. Back to the early 2000s, when I think every single one of us had one of these underneath our seat in our car, right? This is a Thomas guide for all you youngsters. I think I've graduated, I can say that now. But this is a Thomas guide, and inside there's a whole world of fun. You had to, it's a map book. You had to go to your particular area, find what page you were looking at. Then you would go to that page and see this two-dimensional representation of a three-dimensional world, right? And you would get your highlighter out and you'd mark the route that's the way I want to go. That's where I want to go. Okay. And then you actually drove it, and the route you took was a little bit different, right? And we can always all remember that experience. We can always remember, make a left turn, make a right turn, and maybe we should just stop and ask for directions. In the car, there could be disagreements on which way to turn, disagreements on this is that street, why aren't you looking? We've all been there, okay? And so we all remember the frustration of working with this kind of analog, early kind of technology that we were working with maps. And then this magnificent piece of technology came along. It's the GPS unit that we now have in our cars and which become commonplace. These have nice, you just put in your address, there's a nice voice telling you making a right turn, making a left turn, and you can focus on driving and making sure that you're operating your vehicle safely. So this was a big moment for all of us, I think. So how does this relate to landfill guidance system? Well, actually, the analog system, the Thomas guide, is kind of analogous to what we do now. We provide a map to our operators out in the field. It's a two-dimensional map. So this is a contour map, which shows where the slopes are, and we give them direction on where we want them to fill the next piece of the landfill. So those blue areas are our kind of version of our highlighter on the map, showing where we want them to fill, to what elevation we want them to fill, and about how long we think that fill will take. And similar to the previous example, sometimes we have to make left turns when we should have made a right turn. We are able to fill in one area one day, but next day it rains and we have to fill in another area. Things are dynamic out there. They're changing all the time. And so they're using their intuition and their years of experience out there. And ReGen is really fortunate to have a number of people who have been here for decades, and they have a lot of experience out in the field. So we've been really relying on them over the past few years. And that's a difficult task as we get more and more waste to be able to keep up with it, because this is not the place where you want to be stopping and asking for directions every day. Shout out to Eric for this photo. It really shows the organized chaos that's out there on the landfill. So,
I see some seagulls on there.
So this is what a landfill guidance system GPS would look like. So this is kind of analogous to what's in your car, but way more advanced. And I'll show you why. Not only does the GPS give the operator the horizontal location of where they are on the landfill, which you can kind of see here, it also tells them the vertical information. It lets them know how much fill they need to make in the given area, whether they're on grade or not. Our engineering team produces a model, a three-dimensional model in the computer. We upload that to the machines. They get that information on their GPS. It tells them where they need to fill, where they need to cut, how much compaction they're getting, and they're getting a lot of feedback constantly throughout the day to know where they are, where they should be, and where they're going the next day. So here you have a little graphical representation of a compactor. This is showing where the operator is now. This red kind of dashed line, that's the future fill. So they can see where they're going to fill up to in the coming weeks and months. And that's very helpful. On the left-hand side, you can see the area that this compactor is working on. See a few colors there, red, yellow, and green. That red, yellow, and green coloring means how well they've compacted that area. So it's keeping track of them as they're moving forward and backward on the waste and telling them this waste has been compacted to the standard that's been set. You know, as it changes the compaction, it also changes the color. And so you're painting by numbers. You're going up and down, which is very different than the experience they have right now. You know, they have to keep track. Okay, how does this waste feel as I'm driving over it? And they're going off that experience they have of, you know, okay, this is compacted, then they can move on. Well, now they have this extra tool they can use in addition to their experience that helps them give real metrics that can be reported to management. Another great thing that it has is this little circle here is an exclusion zone. So that may be a gas well that we don't want the compactors to run into. This is a warning zone. If the compactor gets close to this, he gets an the operator gets an annoying noise that comes on. And if they get in the red zone, then it starts really letting them know that they shouldn't be near that area. So that's really important on our landfill for a number of reasons. These exclusion zones can get set up for any number of kind of infrastructure we have out there. And then also it's giving them their horizontal and vertical locations. Any questions on this piece of it? Yes.
Actually, yeah, as far as the exclusions bonus, I'm a little, I get distracted easily in cars now with all the things that can an exclusion zone include a person? Can you actually tag a person? And
that's not really available right now. They'd have to be wearing a GPS receiver that's communicating up. I don't know the answer to that, but it's a really great question.
But you could designate the zone where he may be.
You can designate the zone, yeah.
To be in that zone and not leave it, and it would protect them for the zone area. If he leaves the zone area, it wouldn't technically follow into the areas he's at. But if you specify an area, and for example, our spotter has a spotter station now, we can create that as a zone because he'll stay within that station parameter.
So it's set up for fixed. These ones are set up for fixed locations. Amazing thing about this technology is they'll actually be able to see the other pieces of equipment because they have GPS on them.
Okay.
So it's possible, but the person would have to be wearing something GPS. Maybe they get a little smiley face going around on the landfill. But that's a good question. And here's a piece of equipment. This is how we're going to modify our equipment. We're going to be putting a GPS sensor on the top of the cab of the unit. Then based on that location and having a known distance to the front blade of the bulldozer, we can calculate using the GPS satellites where that bulldozer is, both horizontally and vertically. There's a wiring harness that needs to get put on these pieces of equipment, and then the actual receiving antenna gets mounted on top, and then that GPS display that you saw gets mounted inside of the cab. Benefits of the landfill guidance equipment are numerous. The operators get real-time feedback on where they are, what they're compacting, and current elevations, location. 3D surface models are available almost instantaneously to the operators. So if we decide in the engineering department that we want to move a road, build a road in another place, we can upload that information immediately to them within minutes, and they have the new design file. And because they're building off of a surface that's in their cab, there's a reduced need to rework areas because they're building it once the first time. There's not any kind of disagreements out in the field about, okay, well, it looks like it's at 2% to me. No, that looks like it's at 5%. Oh, the road should be here. No, it's a little bit over here. So we are reducing the amount of time that we have to rework these areas because everybody's working off the same plan. Everybody's seeing the same construction going on. And last but not least, there's data that's collected constantly from these machines that tells you how much time each piece of equipment's been running, where that equipment's been throughout the day. So you can see each day play out in real time. And you can actually go back and say, what were we doing 6 months ago? And replay that whole day and know, okay, this is where we were filling. This is where Randy was. This is where Israel was. And you can tell what everybody was doing. There's a number of qualitative benefits. Talked about the rework, reduced rework. The build quality will improve because we've got a lot more information, and the transfer of data between the engineering team and the operations team will be improved. As I mentioned, the exclusion zones and again, work time and data. So this table is kind of busy, but it shows the value of our airspace for each % increase of compaction. So as the waste is brought in, we put it into the landfill and then we densify it, we compact it, we squish it down into the smallest amount of space we can. And as we compact the waste, we're actually gaining more value in that in that fill, because that airspace is essentially what we're selling at the landfill. We're selling airspace capacity, and the more airspace we can save, the more value we're saving for future generations, for future potential filling. So we're currently at first line, we're at 1,340 pounds per cubic yard, and with just a 2% increase in the densification of the waste, the compaction, we expect to save 23,000 cubic yards per year, which has a value of $644,000. And we picked that for example. We really think that 5% to 6% is within our range of achieving. So the numbers get pretty big pretty quick about how much value we could be saving in that landfill. Another example of kind of some ROI, if we were to hire a surveyor to get the amount of data that we're looking for, the compaction that metrics that we're looking at, they have to come out here every day. We're filling every day. The landfill is changing every day. For a 2-person survey crew, half a day minimum charge, which is what they would charge us. And for 310 days coming out here every day, that would cost us $465,000. And we wouldn't have as many metrics, as much data as we would be getting with this system. So here's what the ask is as far as pieces of equipment. We're asking for 3 compactors to be outfitted with the GPS kit at $42,000 each. Oops, got a little error there. 3 bulldozers at $40,000. There's a Carlson Command, which is the application, cloud-based application that we'd be using. The GPS rover, which is a mobile unit that can get data, pick up data just like a survey crew. And then the GPS base station, and then installation and training. I'll sum these up in a future slide. But just to let you know, we did go and look at 4 different products that we thought could potentially meet our needs: Carlson, Trimble, Geologic, and Topcon. Carlson and Trimble are the 2 big names in this kind of field. Geologic and Topcon less or so, but they're still something we took a look at. We found that Carlson and Trimble were just head and shoulders above the other 2 as far as what they could provide and what we were looking for. So we shortlisted these 2 and started in conversations with the vendor to get costs. We went to visit sites, 2 different sites, 2 different landfills. Fresno County American Avenue landfill had the Carlson system, and the Trimble system was at Santa Maria. Our whole crew, Randy, one of our operators, Jay went out there, I went out there. We all got to jump in the cab and take a look at how they're using them, and they absolutely love them. So then after that, we asked each vendor for the cost. The Carlson system was $354,000. and the Trimble system was 369,000. But we had a budget of about $500,000 in the this fiscal for this fiscal year for this particular item. Staff recommended going with Carlson. They just provided a better solution for landfills. It was built from the ground up for landfills. So we based our selection on ReGen's needs, the site visits that we took, and multiple demos and questions for each vendor. And confirmation that it would work with our CAD system. So when engineering does build these 3D models, we can actually get them integrated into the system. And we had a price as a marker as well. And like I mentioned, we went with Carlson. They had a comprehensive solution for landfill equipment. They actually gave us a real-time measurement of compaction, which Trimble didn't. So the operators actually get told, you know, you've met your compaction in this area, whereas the Trimble system didn't do that for us, which was really important. And the Carlson system was built from the ground up for landfills. The Trimble system was more for earthwork, which is a very different beast. The real-time Carlson offers the real-time updated working surface and real-time indication of what other operators are doing. So if somebody's working over in the eastern area and you're working in the western area, you can see what that other person's doing, how they're compacting the waste in the other areas. And then there's we're going to be flooded with data. So we have arrived. Nobody's arguing, hopefully. So I'm happy to take any questions that you may have on this system.
All right, thank you. Questions? So good.
Good question. How are these things powered? I assume they're battery powered?
They're battery powered with the equipment's alternator and battery that they get wired into the equipment.
It's a rechargeable, like a lithium ion battery?
No, there's no batteries in them. They're running when the equipment's running. So when they turn on, it's like your car radio. When you turn on, it runs off the equipment power. It's fairly low energy draw because it's just receiving data.
I understand that the ones that are mounted on one piece of equipment, but don't you have some mobile ones that are?
Yeah, so the mobile rover, that will be battery powered, and the base station, that's battery powered as well.
Okay. These are standard lithium ion batteries.
Lithium ion batteries.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
It sounds great, the technology and the improvements. I was just a question on the survey, the ground survey, I think you called it a command.
Carlson command, what? Go
The
ahead.
survey of the ground contours, the fill contours is done by a fixed site. Or by satellite.
So if we go to, let's see,
Sorry.
oh no. Well, you can bear with me here. The district does an annual aerial flight and uses photogrammetry to get the topo that you see here. So that is a form of topo that we get. There are, and then supplements that with a ground surveyor with a rod and a base station where they can take topo points for a particular area that they're working on.
Yeah, no, I thought that this system would update the topography
Yeah.
daily.
Yes, so I get it now. So as the machines are working, they're populating a database. And from that database, you see the site get built out. And so that topo that data is stored, and then a new surface gets built as they work. So that's why you can go back 6 months ago and see where they were filling and where the equipment is. So that's all cloud, that's all data in the cloud. And that gets translated and into visual representation that we can see.
And so there's no compaction outside of the area that's being worked on. There's no compaction over time. It's static.
Well, there's compaction when the waste comes in. So the compactors are moving it. As the landfill decomposes and as the landfill,
There's
there is some settlement that happens every year.
I
Yeah,
gather that's small. You're-
it can be significant. Yeah, it can be a couple feet per year.
Okay, I was just curious. It would seem like that satellite system of map this topography whenever you want it, but anyhow, it's is there a trial period? Is there an opt-out
The trial, I'm trying,
for the equipment? And the reason I'm asking is, our city, we bought some equipment and monitors software and it just didn't work. And then a few months into it, there were license plate readers. And after a few months, they just weren't working, and then we had to renegotiate how to back out of the agreement.
I
We got some
think
money
that's
back.
very highly unlikely. It's very similar to the Thomas guide, to having the difference between our experience with a Thomas guide and then having a GPS.
Okay,
It's a quantum leap in capabilities. And so the people we talk to at each landfill say this is probably one of the best purchases they've made. Their operators love it to death. As we were looking at it in the office and actually viewing one of the operator's screens, we were changing some things on their screen. Immediately they got a phone call. Hey, why are you messing with my screen? Like, leave my screen alone. I'm using it. Because they want to be able to get that feedback and know what's happening with the fill. So I think it's highly unlikely from what we've seen and the folks we've talked to who have a system like this.
Okay, well, I appreciate your confidence. I guess I was asking, is there a money back guarantee? Probably not. Last question I'm thinking of a video game, and 3D imaging that the operator could manipulate. I suppose that's
No, that's possible here. So they have a number of
I didn't
screens.
see a picture. I saw.
There's a lot of options on this screen. So what you see here are some of those. I have my pointer back. What you see here, those are contours, and those are two-dimensional representations of a slope. So the closer these contours are, the steeper the slope is, the farther they are, the flatter is. So this is a flat spot, that's a slope here. So you can change this to be a 3D model like you'd see on, and you can rotate it and zoom in to particular areas. It's just a change in the visualization. And those options are plentiful. If you want to go to a different screen, see that 3D representation, you could zoom, twist, turn, and make cross sections. It's much more advanced than it looks like on this, even just this screen.
Thank you.
Sure.
This is really exciting. I think this is super cool. But so I'm curious, does this increase your efficiency enough? Kind of going back to Mayor Peak's thought about settling out, and if we have, do you ever go back and re-compact areas to gain space? And would this allow you to do more of that if you do any of it now?
We do an annual flight to get that topography and be able to calculate that settlement every year. We do this annually, and that's really where we're going to get the information as far as the settlement piece of it. This is really and we can come back and potentially fill certain areas to gain back some of that airspace. This equipment is really for the day-to-day operation. we can get the information as they move around or as they fill, and then go back to see how the fills are, but it doesn't really give us more information about any information about settling. However, we could go with that rover, that GPS unit, and survey a particular area of interest and get that data in just in a different way. Or the equipment could drive over it 10 times, and then now we have topo of that area. So, but it's not watching the whole site constantly.
Right,
It's really just the areas they're working.
right. So do you go back and fill some of those generally? Do you go back and fill those areas that settle?
Yeah, it depends on the area. So sometimes slopes will lay down, we call it, so that they might build it at 3-to-1, but then it kind of comes down to 4-to-1 or something like that. So they might come back and do a sliver fill to regain that airspace. It's really on a case-by-case basis and on how efficient we think we can be when we put the waste back in. But the landfill's doing it for us. We may go back over an area like you see this fill area A, or actually better examples, fill area B. That's over existing waste. So that area has been there for 5 years and it's settled. And then now we're coming back over it and putting more fill in. It's a constant thing we're doing as we fill the landfill.
I can't see Bruce.
Whoops,
Bruce, speak up if you have a question.
guys got something to say.
I don't have Bruce.
The guy, you have something to add?
No.
Yes, I do in reference to Mayor Peak's question about capabilities of the equipment. In my former position with the private waste management company, I was part of a selection team for this type of equipment. It was around 2011. The findings of that selection team were the same as being proposed today. It was the Carlson system. And that particular landfill has been using the Carlson system for 10 years and has had very good experience with it.
All right, the vote of confidence. Just real quick, is it fair to say the better compaction we get today, the less settling we have later?
Yeah, that's fair to say.
Yeah.
Sure. Would it Warren a moment to talk to Randy Vanger? He's a frontline guy. He's definitely out there, and he could probably share a depiction of. He was here when we were landfilling 300 tons a day. We're now up to 2,000 tons a day. I would like a little bit of feedback from Randy of his experience of this whole endeavor. It'd be great, I think, really to settle the board discussion with, how is this going to make an impact to his existing team that he has today?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, to answer the last question that I heard, if we can get the waste denser as we pack it, there'll be less settlement. And we do have a lot of settlement that happens over time up there. The waste is going in very fast. And the faster it goes in, the less time we have to ensure that it's been done properly. We can monitor it with this system. The system has a bar graph on there that I'll be able to monitor, and it'll show me how thick the waste is being put in. So when you're running a Caterpillar 836 compactor, you want to put that waste in between 18 and 24 inches thick and pack it 3 to 5 times. This will monitor all of that. So if we see the bar graph have these big gaps in there, we can go out there and see what was going on at that particular time. Everything's real nice and tight. Guys are doing a wonderful job. And it'll be a tool that we don't have to come back and do the rework that we've had to do before, where we've been, a lot of it right now is opinion based. And I have 8 operators plus myself. So that's 9 opinions. Some guys are tall, some guys are short, we see things different. They have different experiences. It's just for real. And then we realized, because it came in so fast, that we were off by quite a bit. We have to fall back and do it again. And when we have to do that, it costs us money. costs us resources and costs us time. And it gets really frustrating. So if with this system, and talking with other folks over the last 4 years, as I've been trying to research this, some of the older guys like myself that can feel it as we're building it, and that's how we've learned it, and that's how we know it. They were a little bit hesitant to accept the technology, but after a month or so, like David said earlier, we got on that guy's screen and changed some things, the phone rang, and he's one of them old boys. Because it makes his job easier. If we make the job easier, we can do nicer work. And it's really important that we make this place last for over 100 years.
Great.
Thank you, Randy.
Thank
We
you.
Appreciate your comments.
Right. There's no more questions. I guess we'll open it up to the public, see if there's any comments from the public on the purchase of the system. If you're in the boardroom, please approach the podium. If you're online, please raise your hand. All right.
Approval of the staff recommendation.
Thank you, Lenny. We have a
I'll second that.
motion second. Thank you, Leo. So closing public comment. We have a motion and a second. Any final comments?
Yes, I'd just like to say, this has been a really good presentation, very clear and concise. We've come a long way since when I was a little kid, I would go to the dump with my dad and we would back the car up. It wasn't here, but we would back the car, but it was very exciting to see what was being dumped in there, and then part of it was burning and everything else. You sometimes were tempted to go in there and get something. I think this is a great story for our communities to know the efforts you're making to make our landfill last. I know you tell it in the newsletters, but I don't think it can be retold often enough. And the use of the technology and also the safety element. That really struck me, that someone, if they're getting too close to something that they shouldn't get to, they're going to get a warning right away. I think safety is paramount, as is the life of our landfill. So thank you. It was a terrific presentation.
Great. Thanks. Roll call vote, please.
Dr. Askew,
Hi.
Dr. Blackwelder,
Yes.
Dr. Delgado,
Yes.
Dr. Polito,
Yes.
Director Laska,
Yes.
Director Peak, Vice Chair Shirley,
Yes.
Chair Campbell,
Yes.
motion passes.
Great. It's 8 yes and 1 absence. All right, we're gonna go back in time to item 14, which is declare district assets, D6R bulldozer, Cat 3 938G loader, and 1998 Chevy 2500 utility truck as surplus, and authorize the disposition by selling them for scrap, sealed bid solicitation or third-party auction.
Thank you, Chair. At this point, we have Jay Ramos, our Director of Operations. He'll be presenting the items that will be on the cutting block for us. And as you can see, the Chevy 2500 utility truck is about 25 years old. It's done its service. And Jay has some details around the item that we want to get rid of.
Yeah, hello again, Director Campbell, Chair Campbell and directors. I'm gonna warn you, the wow factor of this presentation is very low. So you have before you the photos of a 23-year-old dozer, an 18-year-old loader, and a pickup truck. This every single piece of this equipment has been replaced. So they're just sitting around collecting dust. It's time to have them move on. Our proposal is to scrap the pickup truck. It doesn't have a working engine or a transmission, and you see it has no bed. The other two pieces of equipment, we're going to begin discussions with 2 online auction firms. Thank you, Leo, for the recommendation. And so that's it. It's a real simple. We just want to declare the surplus so we can move to the next step. Any questions?
I think I've tied off to that loader before. Hope there's something to tie off to after that's gone.
No question? Very simple.
All right, great. All right, so I'll just quickly open it up to the public. If there's any comment from the public on the declaration of these, this equipment is surplus. If you're in the chambers, please approach the podium. If you're online, please raise your hand. No sign of anyone?
I don't show any.
Okay. Seeing no one, closing public comment. If we could get a
Motion approved.
thank you, Jerry.
Second.
Thank you, Karen. We have a motion and a second to the board declare these assets surplus. All right, roll call vote, please.
Director Askew? Director Blackwelder?
Yes.
Director Delgado?
Yes.
Director Polito?
Yes.
Director Laska?
Yes.
Director Peak?
Aye.
Vice Chair Shirley?
Yes.
Chair Campbell?
Yes.
Motion passes with those present.
All right, thank you. We've got 7 yes and 2 absent.
Yes.
All right. Moving on to item 16, authorize the general manager to execute a contract with Wood Brothers Incorporated of Lemoore, California for a hauling of long-term intermediate cover in the amount not to exceed 105,000, which includes a 10% contingency.
Thank you, Chair. At this point, we'll have Jay introduce the item. The item is actual work that is a compliance item. And with all the rainfall and rework that we're having to do with infrastructure, we need some support to stay in compliance with some of the items that we have. We'll see more items come up in the future, but definitely this is an item of concern as we have a Cal Recycle audit coming in late February. This will help us mobilize the unit, get the permanent cover put on board, and really alleviate some of the pressures to the existing work that we're living today with the rework of roads and the muddy conditions and a lot of rework areas that is going to take some significant time for our staff to do in-house. So we'll look for support from outside agencies to really help us mitigate the pressures to the ongoing concerns with rework and making sure our landfill is compliant. You know, the biggest obstacle that we faced during the storms was having a safe area for all our customers, whether there were regional haulers or there were self haulers, is finding a safe place for them, a safe pathway. And at this point, I'd like to congratulate the landfill operations team and site team for coming together and really making that happen. Preparation and effort was really a distinguishing during these moments. So Jay, if you wouldn't mind jumping right into the work that would.
Yeah, no, Felipe, you know, that's most of it. The only thing that I would add is mid-February, we are due for our 18-month inspection from Cal Recycle. And this is one of the items that would put us out of compliance. So there is a sense of urgency to this. We're probably about a week or 2 weeks away from being able to repair the landfill from all the storm damage. So we just don't have the bandwidth to take this project on. So that's why we're asking for this unbudgeted expense to get it done. It's a compliance. That's what's driving it. Any questions?
Makes sense. Are there any questions from the board? Seeing none, I'll open it up to public comment. Is there any public comment on this item? Please approach the podium or raise your hand if you're online.
I show none.
All right, thank you. Closing public comment. I could get a motion to authorize the general manager to execute a contract for hauling long-term intermediate cover in the amount of not to exceed 105,000 with Wood Brothers Inc. Lemoore.
I'll move staff approval.
Thank you, Winnie. Second. Thank you, Leo. We have motion second. Any final comments? Roll call vote, please.
Director Askew?
Aye.
Director Blackwelder?
Yes.
Director Delgado? Director Polito,
Aye.
Director Laska,
Yes.
Director Pete. Vice Chair Shirley,
Yes.
Chair Campbell,
Yes.
motion passes.
All right, and that's 7 yes, 2 absent, and we're moving on to staff reports, review the finance operating and recycling.
Thank you, sir. At this time, we have our finance manager, Garth Gregson, and you will go ahead and do our presentation for the month and year-to-date results on our financial and operational expenses.
Morning, board, and we've just finished half of fiscal 2023, and the results are generally very positive. December was a somewhat notable month in that our total revenue of 4.4 million was, I think, maybe the highest that the district has ever had in a month. And it was a combination of higher tip fees, very good power revenue, and the MRF had a pretty good month as well. So that was a very positive sign. So the month of December on its own was very, very strong. Although we did have some higher expenses, we had some landfill or site related costs, which I think had something to do with like maintaining and the roads out around the landfill site. So, you know, we had some higher operating suppliers, higher professional services. We had some corrosion repair done at the MRF, which was rather pricey. So that landed in December. So the month of December, you know, we ended up about 73K under plan for net income, but overall it was still pretty good. Year to date, you know, our tip fee revenue is about 17.5 million. We are about 736,000 over budget. And we're 2.8 million better than we were for the same period last year, which is due to the increase in tip fees that went into effect July 1st of 2022. And also the additional revenue that we picked up from customers like Waste Solutions. So that, you know, tip fee revenue continues to be very strong. The other revenue, the MRF is still kind of lagging behind budget wise, and where we were last year, we're about 2.9 million lower on MRF revenue this year than we were for the same period last year. But it might be picking up. So overall, you know, bottom line is, you know, we're at about $5.5 million of net income year to date. So we're 340K over budget. And we are 966,000 actually below where we were last year at this same period as far as net income. And that's primarily because MRF revenue is down and some of our operating expenses are higher in this fiscal 23. In terms of the volume activity coming in, so far in fiscal 23, we have brought in about 479,000 tons of material, which is about 55,000 tons higher than same period last year. And a lot of that has to do with just the, you know, the volume we're seeing from some of our regional customers, and the Waste Solutions contract that we signed earlier in the year is contributing to that number. Our diversion percentages continue to be in the same general range. We're about 65% for the single stream and about 60% for the C&D. And we are entertaining ways that we can improve those diversion percentages, but they are actually, you know, quite comparable to what they have been in the past. So we're not doing anything terribly different than what has been done in prior years. So that's kind of a quick summary of where we are year to date. Any questions? I'd be happy to take them.
I see no questions. I guess that's. Once again, your reports were so clear and when you present them that well, that really things aren't going off the rails. But what are we gonna? What do we have to talk about except thank you very much. It's very welcome. The report, and Karen, you'll become familiar with these as you see them. But there's a lot of good information in there. All right, I will consider that received. Thank you very much. I take it we didn't have any TAC meetings or anything recently, so there's no correct. And no other correspondence side out from.
No.
Thank you. Felipe, General Manager Communications.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to get through my comments fairly quickly here. I have quite a few, but I think they're all important to share. We did provide our letter to Marina Coast Water District on the opportunity for a water solution here at ReGen Monterey. So have received our letter, and at the same time, we've also looked at Monterey One Water submit their letter in support of the Castroville pipeline and us getting a spur off on that. So we'll continue discussions there. We also had an employee giving donation that we did in December, and through the contributions of the employees and personnel and the help of the social committee, we raised over $3,500 that were contributed to the Salvation Army. And we were able to support in the month of December some housing issues that would come up with Salvation Army and support families in need of support in that area. So great contributions from ReGen. I'm really proud to be in my position here with people that don't shy away from the giving feel of supporting in areas that may need these types of supports and contributions. So these are great gestures that are coming directly from the staff and from the frontline folks. So I'm greatly appreciative of that. So that's a great contribution to the community. We also got customer responses for the closure that we had, and the appreciation from all the staff to have the flexibility to attend our holiday celebration was well embraced by staff, but it was also embraced by our communications of our closure for the day. We did that a month in advance, maybe over a month in advance. We had billboard, electronic signs, handouts. We used every pathway. We used the Facebook technology and Instagram technologies, all these technologies to communicate. And one of the common themes and responses from our community was the ability for all the staff to be able to join a company or an organization function. And it doesn't happen all year round. And that was the one day that it happened. So we were very support from the community and our customers in us having an early closure that day. It was a 3-hour early closure, and we didn't miss a beat. People were here early. And so we continue to run our operation. We're really excited about that as well. We've also had 2 recent inspections. I want to give hats off to Guy and David and the team that supports our compliance here. We had the Central Coast Water District come out here and do a very comprehensive inspection of our facility to make sure we're managing water appropriately. And David was fortunate enough to host 2 water representatives on that tour. It took over 4 or 5 hours to go through the entire processions of the audit, and we came out with no findings, and that's great to report. And that's a result of all the staff, all the efforts to making sure that we have compliance along with regular work. So very, very good outcome. We also had shortly after that another inspection by the local environmental agency that came and did their inspection, and we also didn't have no findings there. So a great year to finish off the month of December with positive yields on inspections from local agencies that are making sure that we're doing what we say we're going to do, and that's really taking care of our environment and the folks around us. We also received a letter from the Boys and Girls Club. We did a contribution in the month of December, and they wanted to send their appreciation. And again, this is contributions that are coming from frontline folks and the organization. So we're really proud of the contributions that we continue to see happen. My last item that I have here is, I have a couple more. One is an opportunity to really look at disaster funding for some of the items that we incurred here at the district. You guys have seen short report outs come from me saying that we were able to continue operation. But there was a little small disclosure is we do have areas of concern, and there are travelways and pathways that may need efforts so that we can re-engineer the roads and pathways to get material over to the top of the landfill. So we will see that. I think we created a small PowerPoint, and as they pull up the PowerPoint is just a representation of some of the pictures that we captured while we were dealing with the water and the potential flooding. I think I'll take this opportunity, one, to show how the people represent ReGen Monterey as an organization. They did not falter to come to work. They were not evasive to call off work. We even asked some of our tenured employees that lived miles and miles away in Los Baños to take the day off and potentially save them a potential turnaround at any point. And we got refusals. No, I want to come to work. So that was a huge gesture from the workforce to show that we're not going to falter. We're essential to what we do, and they all were formidable of coming in. Jay and the leadership team and staff organized an emergency response team. We housed them in Marina, 20 employees, so that if we did get shut out, then we would have a minimum crew to still open the doors and run our operation. So hats off to the preparation, hats off to the county leaders and the city leaders that prepared for it. You know, we weren't sure what was going to happen. We were out there taking pictures of bridges, our areas of concern, where the water dams at. We had concerns with our neighbors, which is Ramco. They were having issues with their levees for their fields, and the team did not falter. Everybody jumped into action. I'm very, very proud to represent ReGen Monterey with all the frontline staff. We responded extremely well, and it just shows a positive future for everybody here at ReGen in the participation of. We have a workforce that loves this place, loves what they represent, and we continue to embrace the knowledgeability of them understanding what we represent as an organization. So I'm extremely excited with one, if we can get disaster funding for any of the repairs that we need to get done, that we do so. But the people around us were just tremendous in their efforts of keeping the organization running. Randy left, but their team also, they made sure that during that time, I was sitting in my office and I could see the rain falling, and I was still seeing semis driving up to the top of the landfill, which meant our readiness and our preparedness for wet weather was evident. And so I'm pretty excited to report that out. And I'll dovetail our safety. We were recognized under safety for several items. One is we received a letter from SDRMA, an insurance claim letter, is that we had no property liability claims over the last 2 years here. And for the amount of effort and the amount of people and the amount of structure and operations that we run, we're in a extremely sensitive to safety area every day. We have 600 to 700 vehicles cross the scales. Everybody's at risk at some point or another. And for us to have results that show 0 claims, 0 incidents. I think we have Loriana Medina, our safety manager, in the audience. We have Sally Madriano, which is her support staff, and then everybody that complies with the rules and the obligation of safety and say something if you see something mentality is being fairly evident to what we do. And I think this is a representation of the direction we receive from the board, from the leadership, and then listening and hearing the feedback from frontline employees of concerns that we want to address before there's an incident. And I'll just share a couple of other stats that just really rescind with me is, you know, for safety, we had some goals in 22 and we had a 25% reduction on our 5-year average of OSHA recordables. That was 12. We had 9 in the last year. That was our goal, and we achieved our goal. We also looked at reducing our TRIR from 9.5 to 7.1, and we had a 23% reduction, and we missed the goal of 7.1, and we came in at 7.7, which is still faring very well in what we do. We had 60% of our employees call in with unscheduled absences, less than 32 hours of unscheduled absences, and we had about 60% of our employees be in that number of designating their time off and being responsible employee and not missing days if they were not scheduled. So this is a really good metric for us because it causes less interruptions and it causes people that are trained to be in the roles that they're trained for, and we're not trying to plug and play someone that does not have the training to be safe in that environment. So that is a great metric for us to look at as well. We had zero lost time, like I mentioned, it's been 2 years in a row. We're very excited about it, and we're gonna really give back to the staff and let them know how important that metric is for us. And we have an event coming next Friday, and we're excited, and all the board members would be welcome to come. And here's another item that we focused on when I came in. We had a rash of general liabilities, like tires, a nail in my tire, you know, and we really didn't have a good format. So we started creating general liability waivers. And since April of last year, we started tracking it. We went through December. We completed 2,913 liability waivers from either a pullout, a flat tire, my car don't start, I need a pull, I need to get pushed aside. So these waivers are important because if we don't have them, anybody can come back and say, you damaged my vehicle, or I damaged my vehicle there. So we created a greater awareness around this. And I think what we'll set for next year is kind of removing the need to have a liability waiver for some of our long-term customers, our regional haulers, the dump kings of the area that come in and use our facility often. So we think we can reduce the number of waivers that we're filling at the time of dumping or the need of a service. So at this point, again, I feel very embellished in my position with having the support of the staff and the board and everybody in alignment to what we represent as an organization. And we'll continue to meet our strategic plan and push forward, but it couldn't be done without the board guidance, the leadership team, and then all the frontline staff continuing the efforts, and they were unsurpassed during the time of rain. Nobody faltered. We had very small instances of concern, and we were just monitoring. And if you wouldn't mind kind of looking at the screen, we'll share some of the details that you can see there. What you see here is right at the rubber dam, these artichokes fields sits on ReGen property. Those are these two, the Jefferson family. And we had a breach in the levee, but we attempted to try to support the break in the levee right at the water dam. So there's this damage here. This will probably be recognized by the Jefferson family. Here's the pictures we were taking as the days went on, and we were preparing to see if we were going to have washouts. The bridge to the right-hand side is the entrance into Castroville on Merritt Street off the 156, and the 156 in the Merritt Street entrance there. The bottom right-hand corner is where the rubber dam's at. That's Monterey One Water equipment there. There's a big cement pad there that you can't see. It's underwater. You can see some of the bridge areas that were concerning because they were about 10 feet away from the bottom of the bridge. So we looked at all these different bridges. Next slide, please. Here's what you're seeing at the landfill. So we've had washed away roads. We've had damage to the final cover on the west face of the landfill. We had 4 slides where it got so saturated that the cover that we have on there just kind of slid like a landslide. The upper right-hand corner, there's a whole bunch of fissures of water running down the pathway of the side of the landfill. Those will have to be corrected. You can see the roadways to your left and to your right. We had to put rails out there to keep the sand and materials and the silt coming into our roadways and obstructing our pathways. Next slide, please. Here's an example of one of the slides on the west face. There's a utility vehicle, and you can see the size of the slide, and we have about 4 of them that size that we'll have to address. And as Randy and Jay mentioned, we still have about 2 weeks to dry out and absorb before we can actually start doing anything of repair. So that's where the judgment call comes from staff to say, how do we support our operation when there's so many other things to do other than the normal work, and that was really caused by all the saturation that we had. The right-hand side is again more roads with deterioration. This is our staff at work. You know, everybody's in rubber gear. We're moving pipes. We're painting gabions. To the left there, we have our site crew manager, John Easton. You know, he was stretched. We were moving pumps and moving lines and really trying to create an area where we're still compliant and we still have a safe place to dispose of material. So lots of challenges over the last 2 to 3 weeks. Even when it's dry right now, we're still dealing with some of those challenges. But what excites me is the support and the unfaltering gestures of our frontline workforce to continue to push forward and get it done. Next slide, please. Here's the cleanup. You know, some more equipment, and we're trying to do normal functions with additional functions. So it does become a little bit chaotic and it does have to be synchronized. So that's why the discussions around how do we get outside support to support landfill operations so that we don't run our guys so thin where we start having incidents and accidents and failures in our compliance. We definitely want to mitigate that as much as possible. Next slide, please. MRF, you know, faced the same challenges, wet weather, all our material getting wet. And, you know, the way David Salcido described it is we have to run everything just a little bit slower, just as we do when it rains on the roadway. We're no longer, hopefully not going 70 miles an hour. We reduce our speed to 55. Well, we have to do the same with the MRF. If it's wet, we're going off our normal speed and we're reducing that, which causes a backup of material. And then also, how do we get rid of wet material and what is going to be a fail material if we process it or not? So all that is happening as we speak right now, and full confidence in our staff to make the right decisions, coordinated with leadership. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. And that's just the little visuals of what we've seen over the time, but again, staff and leadership, HR, communications, everybody's dived in and done their piece to make sure that we had a good result and outcome, even with all the what nature had to bring to us over the last few weeks. So we're pretty excited where we're at, and we'll make trek ways, but we'll continue to see these discussions come up based on the saturation we received and the repair work. It's going to get us back to be one in compliance and to have a safe area to continue to push vehicles through. Thank you, Chair. I know there's a lot of comments, but and you know, Director Peak also mentioned it looked like a small agenda, but there's so many things going on, and I appreciate the board's time today. And there's still a little bit more that we have to push through. I'm excited, but thank you again for all the continued support that you have for staff. Thank you.
Well, thank you and staff. I hear what could have easily been a list of problems and issues. You managed to, I mean, you and staff managed to present very positive outcomes on a number of areas. So thank you very much for all you guys are doing. That's fantastic. All right. We are moving on to board communications. Is there any board member who wishes to make a comment?
Yes, I'll make one small comment in regards to the safety record of district. I'm just blown away. So impressive.
Very impressed back there. Thank you.
Yes, amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, excellent.
Thank you, Mayor.
So, all right, so committee appointments, as chair, I get to appoint people to committees. Unfortunately, with Dan leaving us, he left 2 vacancies. And Perry left a vacancy on the personnel committee, and she had been chair there for quite a while, very good chair and very active. So what I'm looking for is, hopefully, is there anyone who's on a current committee, special districts accepted, who does not want to be, Kim, I hope you continue with finance. Leo, I hope you're good with finance. Jerry, you're still good with personnel, wonderful. And you know, I'm still good with personnel. Special Districts Association, that is Kim's position. She is willing to continue or give it up if there's somebody who's interested in going. It's once a month in the evening and quarterly, excuse me, in the evening dinner with usually a presentation from say LAFCO or and someone else. And it's very informative and you get a meal out of it. And so if there's anyone else who wants to do it quarterly every 3 months, speak up. If not, we will leave him on there for now. And you know, these are not, you're not stuck here for a year, 4 years, whatever. The ad hoc, which is the Monterey One Water ad hoc. Jerry, do you want to stay on it?
Yep.
Okay, so Wendy?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, great. So we're keeping that same. I am not familiar with the ad hoc solid waste management collaboration. Bruce, I don't know if you're still on the line. That means I get to sign you up for all the vacancies. And Wendy, are you good on that ad hoc solid waste management collaboration?
Yes.
And I guess it's called, is that a meeting that's just called?
Correct.
As needed.
Okay. And is there anyone else who's particularly interested in that? Being on that. And I'll just put myself on there for now.
Okay.
And right. And then, all right, so back to finance. Bill, how much time do you have?
Tons.
You want to do finance or you want to do personnel? And they're on the same day, but finance comes a little earlier. Okay, great. We'll put Bill on finance. And Karen, how are you? This Wednesday, at the second Wednesday of the
First Wednesday of the month.
first Wednesday of the month, happens in the morning.
The personnel is at 10:30.
Yeah, personnel will be at 10:30. That's something.
I can probably do that. I'm on AMBAG as well, but I think that's still gonna be the second Wednesday.
Yeah, it doesn't conflict with them.
Okay.
Okay, great. So we will. I'm not seeing your name up here. Okay, the board members. Okay, thank you. So that's. All right. I would prefer to have another person on the personnel besides me. We manage that.
I don't know what Dr. Barber's availability is,
Uh-huh.
but I do think she'd be great on personnel if she is available.
I'll reach out to her then. Great.
Yeah, and then if she's not, I could check, it's once a month, not conflicting with, we do, and then with TMZ on Wednesday mornings. I would have to double check calendaring,
Okay.
but if it's not a conflict, then I would be available if she's not available.
Okay, perfect. Perfect.
And so where does that leave us? So
I-
for finance, who did you have?
For finance, we have Kim still, Mayor Peak joined, and Leo. So that's been very, very consistent. I mean, I suppose I could show up if I wanted to as an ad hoc, but I mean, as an ex officio, but I think we're good with 3. The 3 has been working in the past. Yes. Okay, and then
For
personnel, we generally have had 1 extra person, which has been me. So Karen, and then we'll look into see if Kim wants to join Jerry. And I assume, and me, and each committee can nominate, elect their own chairs. Special District Association is going to be Kim, and then the ad hoc joint, the ad hoc committee with Monterey One Water is not changing. And the solid waste, ad hoc solid waste, I added my name to it.
Okay, I get this there.
Yeah, right. And then as far as the nominating committee, that's something we can discuss towards the end of the year. All right, thank you, everybody. And thank you. Thanks again, Barry, for sitting by my side for the last couple of years. Really appreciate it. All right, so we are moving on to closed session. Rob, if you could read us in a closed session, then I'll open it to see if there's any public comment.
I'll just note that we have agendized 2 items for real property negotiations. And there's 2 matters listed on the agenda, and there'll be a report out following the closed session.
Okay, thank you, Rob.
Point of order, take a short break.
Yes, we'll take a break right before we start. Closed session, that's fine. Maybe 5-minute break and closed session. And we'll, okay, is there any public comment on our 2 closed session items? If you're in the chambers, please approach the podium, or if you're online and would like to make a public comment on closed session items, please raise your hand. Okay, seeing none, public comments closed on the closed session items. We are now adjourning to closed session.
The board came back into open session at 11:40, having taken up the 2 agenda items for closed session as listed on the agenda. They took consideration and discussed each of those 2 matters. And those matters will be forwarded to the full board of directors. No reportable action was taken. There being no further business, the chair adjourned the meeting.